Of course. Excuse me, Commissioner Eisen?
Here.
Commissioner Black?
Here.
Vice Chair Stamper?
Here.
Chair Eisen?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay. All right. So let's go through the approval of the minutes from last session.
I see Louise
Anyone
has joined.
have any issues with that? Let's take 3 minutes here and look through it in case you haven't had a chance.
Chair, I see Louise has joined just for the attendance.
Oh, there you are. Hello, Luis.
Sorry,
Good.
my audio wasn't working. How you guys doing?
Good. Glad to see you. Very good.
Nice to be back. Thank you.
Yeah. So let's take a look. We're taking a look at the minutes from the last session, and yeah, take a good look at that before we approve it, because you weren't here, and so let's just really look through that.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Looks okay to me. Do we have a motion from anyone for approval?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the last week's meeting, or last month's meeting.
Very good.
Second.
Do I have a second? Second from Hillary? Yeah, great. Okay, everyone, do we all agree to approve this? Everyone say aye if you do, and we'll move on.
Aye.
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 Good. All right, minutes have been approved. All right, any announcements and correspondence?
Oh, I'm happy to share a quick announcement. I think people know this, but the Main Street Beautification Committee revisited the situation with COVID and decided and made an announcement about a week and a half ago that they are moving forward with a 4th of July parade and festival in downtown Half Moon Bay on Sunday, July 4th. So I think that's really exciting news and promising for other events as we come out of COVID here. So just a reminder that if you're in town that weekend, please come to downtown Half Moon Bay, enjoy the parade and enjoy the festivities. There's a plan for concerts on Kelly Avenue next to City Hall, and it should be a lot of fun for everybody. The weather looks like it's going to be good and exciting. I think it's a great sign of truly reopening.
All right, and do we have any are we participating in the parade? Anything from Parks and Rec?
I don't think we'll actually have any representation in the parade. The timing was just too late for us to put anything together. They literally, the press release went out a week ago Thursday. We talked to them that morning and they had made the decision. So we're very busy supporting getting it going and making it happen. And from a staff perspective, we're not going to be able to do a float or anything this year, but next year we'll be back at it in full swing.
Yeah, I wonder if the Friends, if they are going to do anything. Do we have anyone from Friends here tonight?
I believe Sherazad is going to call in at some point, and we haven't had that conversation. Eddie and I are going to be meeting with them early next week, and we'll talk to them about that. I think that's a good thought.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. Public comments. Do we have anything from the public tonight?
We don't.
Okay. Thank you, Jonathan. Staff informational reports, city council updates. What is going on with the city council?
That is the question of the ages.
That's right.
And luckily, I'll limit this report to items that directly pertain to this commission. So there's been 2 meetings of the city council since we last met. The June 1st meeting, I think the 2 items that are relevant to this commission we had our first budget hearing at that meeting and took comments from the council, and revisions were made for a future meeting. And then the council made final decisions on the Community Services Financial Assistance Grant Program, which helps to fund local nonprofits and service providers. Just a little background again, because we've got some newer folks here. Historically, it's something we've been doing since 2018, and each year it's grown. But it's typically been an open application process with a subcommittee of the City Council helping to evaluate and make recommendations about awards. And last year, because of COVID and everything going on, the council increased the amount, which had normally been just a little over $100,000 a year, divvied up amongst a variety of nonprofits. They went up to $200,000, but they eliminated the application process and instead selected, I think, 7 nonprofits that were already positioned to provide COVID support and relief, because that's obviously where we were at a year ago. For this fiscal year, they kept that model and continued to fund those agencies with the $200,000 of funding, because the work that they've been doing is ongoing. There's still demand and need for things like food and rental assistance and other things. But they added another $50,000 and an open application process. And with that, we were able to provide, I believe, 10 additional or 5 additional nonprofits with grants. All of it was still very focused on supporting community recovery. And hopefully, as we move into the next fiscal year, it can be broadened again to include things like recreation opportunities and educational opportunities and things like that. But it's a great program. I think we're lucky that the council is so supportive of it and working with our nonprofits. And I know it's greatly appreciated by the nonprofits that we serve.
Before you go, are you going on to the next meeting?
I was going to go ahead.
Okay, so before you leave that meeting, I did not attend that meeting, but from what I saw from the newspaper, can you talk a little bit about, it's saying that Half Moon Bay is in a deficit situation. Yeah, I think that's pretty important to this council to understand what our financial picture is like.
So it's a little bit misleading. What the forecast, part of a budget process is you always want to do at least a 5-year forecast to look at revenues and expenditures. And this year, our expenditures are higher than they normally could have been, because we are receiving those stimulus funds, the American Recovery Act funds. And we'll get those again next year. And then that program is over. And so if we continued our spending on the same trajectory that we're on this year, over the next 5 years without that influx of money, we would be in what's called a structural deficit, where our ongoing expenditures are lower than our ongoing, or higher than our ongoing revenues. And that's where the deficit gets created. And so what that means is that after next fiscal year, we'll really have to reevaluate things. And ideally, recovery will have taken place. Our hotels will be back in full operation or close to full operation, which will be bolstered by the increased TOT tax, which was approved by voters last year. And we'll be able to continue doing the things that we're doing now into the future without a deficit. But if things haven't recovered and our revenues are still reduced, impacted by COVID or just an ongoing recession, then we will have to make cuts again. So it's important to understand that we still have what we would call discretionary expenditures in our budget, things that we can cut and reduce as far as services. Obviously, that impacts things like recreation and community services and these grant programs and other things. There are certain things that are mandatory expenditures and we don't have a choice about spending money on. And so it's important to point that out. And thank you, Paulette, for bringing that up, because it's why the council has to look so closely at the budget every single year. And we have to evaluate the services and things that we're doing every single year, because you can't just assume that because things were good before COVID, that a year later, things are going to get back to normal. So it's something that we'll have the luxury of the cushion of the American Recovery Act funds again next year to keep us bolstered if the economy hasn't fully recovered. And then our hope is that by 2023, we're fully recovered and we're back to a situation where the city can afford to do all the things that it wants to do. If not, we'll have to look at reducing some of the expenditures that we have right now.
Matthew, what is the recreation like budget portion, and what has it been historically? Like what is allocated moving forward, and what has it been?
You know, I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head between, you know, the budget. We worked on the budget several months ago, and then obviously my head's not there because I'm sick, but I believe the recreation budget is a couple of $1 million. And most of that is offset. It's kind of a pass through. It's facility rentals and class registration fees that just get passed. Some of that just gets passed right on to the instructors because we have the contract instructor budget. So if we don't have revenue, we don't have those expenditures. So to some degree, a big portion of that budget is very fluid. And if we don't have classes happening because people aren't registering or because we couldn't because of COVID, we also don't have those expenditures. And then the rest of those expenditures are around staffing costs and special events.
So do we have no money allocated towards kind of like town improvement from a recreation standpoint?
No, the capital improvement program is a separate budget, and there is an entire section of that dedicated to Parks Master Plan implementation.
Okay, cool.
And that's what John and his team report on a regular basis at this meeting.
Okay, good, thanks.
Okay, Matthew, you want to go on to the second meeting? And let us know. Yeah.
Yes, so the second meeting was on June 15th, last Tuesday. Again, of note to you, we executed a license agreement for a 5th surf school at Surfers Beach. There was some pushback from the existing surf schools with their health and safety concerns. I'm not going to get into the details of it, but it's a little bit contradictory to some of the conversations we had with them in the past. And one of the concerns is the surf school that we licensed, though the person that runs it works in Half Moon Bay, they're not living in Half Moon Bay, and there's a feeling of them not being local. And the key to that is we cannot make any of our business decisions based on whether or not a person lives or works in Half Moon Bay.
I agree.
You can't, that's discriminatory, and you cannot do that. And so we've entered into this agreement. All of the 5 surf school agreements expire at the end of 2022. And as we get into fall of 2022, we'll meet with all the surf schools. We'll talk about how operations have gone over the next year and a half, how they feel about health and safety, and we'll have to evaluate the number of surf schools and the number of students that can participate. And if we have to reduce the number of surf schools, then we'll have to look at an RFP process, and they'll all have to compete openly for that. And again, they'll want us to make being local, you know, living or residing on the coast side as a criteria for picking those operators, and we will not be able to do that. So it's just part of the process, and we'll work with them. But the surf schools are a really great thing that we are able to offer here. They're doing summer camps. We amended some of the agreements to allow for some summer camps this year. There are going to be multiple dozens of kids out in the water every day this summer, learning how to swim, learning safety at the beach, understanding, you know, the rip tides and the undertows and how to safely navigate the waters, learning about environmental stewardship and beach protections. And on top of that, learning how to surf and being out and just being energized. It's going to amount to, I think, hundreds of kids participating this summer. It's a great thing, I think, for this community. And we're really excited. And so we want to work with these folks and make this work for everybody, because it's unique too. There's very few communities in California even that can offer this. And I think we've got a robust program, and I want to keep it going. It's a really great thing.
Matthew, do we have any kids from the Raleigh Scholarship or anything like that attends surf school, or do we have any way to get underprivileged kids into surf school?
So our current setup with these schools is not our normal contract instructor setup. And so we don't have that mechanism. We met with all the surf schools over the last couple of months in planning for this summer. And they've all assured us that they have programs set up to allow folks that can't afford the normal rates to participate. And that was one of the requirements of allowing and entering into these amendments to allow them to have these camps.
Yeah.
My hope is when we get to the end of this term and we look at restructuring some of this, we might be able to structure it in a way that they're more like a contract instructor. We'll have a little bit more control over their operations and be able to do things like scholarships directly through our programs. I think it'll just enhance it going forward.
Very good.
There was on the meeting on the 15th, additionally, and I'll talk a little bit about this during our priority setting discussion, so I won't get into it now, but we did provide a legislative support letter for some funding for Carter Park in the state budget. It's a pretty exciting opportunity, and again, I'll share that as we get into our priority setting discussion. The only other thing I'm going to share, and I have to say, let me share 3 other ones, and I'll get to this one. The budget was approved with some tweaks after the first meeting. It's a balanced budget. We maintain the reserve levels that we're dedicated to, including our economic instability fund, which was created over the last couple of years, and I think has been really helpful in allowing us to continue our operations. So we're still in a very strong financial position, not where we want to be, but we're in a good spot compared to a lot of other cities. The council also appointed the redistricting advisory committee for the elections in 2024, or in 2022, which are, again, I won't get into this, but we have to reevaluate the districts, and the council decided to allow a 7-member community group to help in that process. So that'll be an exciting thing to see move forward. And then the council also approved the changes to the biped advisory committee and appointed the committee members. And so those folks will be seated over the next month and sworn in and get all their training. And as we'll talk about in our priority setting, they'll be holding a joint meeting with us this late summer, early fall, which will be really exciting. That's when we'll be able to really dig in on the coastal trail and some other things. The last thing I'll mention, just because I think it's out there and it's a big, important issue. It's not within the purview of this commission, so I don't think it's something we really have. It's not appropriate for us to really get into a discussion about. But I think you've all probably seen and heard that law enforcement and law enforcement reform has become the biggest and hottest issue in Half Moon Bay and at city council meetings. It's dominated the last 3 council meetings. And so there was a huge portion, I think several hours, 3 hours of the last meeting dedicated to this. We do have a public safety subcommittee meeting with 2 of the council members tomorrow night to talk about some of the areas that the council members all agree upon in a little more detail. And there's a lot of outstanding issues that unfortunately are going to take a lot of our time over the next several months. If you're interested in more detail, I'm happy to talk offline with any of you. You can watch the council meetings. It's interesting. It's kind of the signs of the times right now. This is going on in a lot of cities, but it has really ratcheted up here in Half Moon Bay the last couple of months, and I think it's going to be at the forefront for the next several months.
Isn't part an announcement? I just thought about this. That what is it? July 5th? What? There's a date for a public forum about this subject.
Well, no, July 5th is a holiday. There was, I think there
is
was.
Is it the 8th?
Well, there was some talk about doing something on July 6th, which is normally a council meeting, but canceled because of the holiday. There at this point, there's no plan to hold anything on the 6th. There may be a forum held before the July 20th council meeting, which would be our next regular council meeting. I think that's something that'll be discussed tomorrow at the subcommittee meeting. So.
Okay. Because from that meeting, there was that whole thing of we need more input from the community. And so that's why I thought there was something scheduled for that input.
There will be a community survey, and that's part of the agenda for tomorrow night to talk about planning for that. And then you're right, there will be some community meetings, but no dates have been set for any of those yet.
Okay.
And that's the end of those updates.
All right, very good. Very, very good. All right, so now we get to recreation updates.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Eddie.
So I just have a few quick ones for you, and then we'll save the rest for summer's end. One thing we haven't really talked about before, and I'm not sure all the commissioners know, it's a little behind the scenes kind of stuff for the recreation department, but one of the big things that we handle in the city is facility rentals. That's actually a really big part of what we do, on top of recreation programming, sports leagues. We handle all the special event permits and the film and photography permits. Facility rentals is a big thing for us, and obviously over the last year, we haven't been okay to rent spaces for large group gatherings like we used to. So now that we're back open, starting in July, we're going to make those facilities available again to the community. So they'll once again have the ability to rent out spaces and rooms at the community center, the train depot, and the Half Moon Bay Library community rooms, which is really great for us, great for the community. But with these rental opportunities, we'll need to have some additional staff to accommodate all those requests that we're now getting. So as of last week, we started recruitment for a few more building attendants. These are the part-time positions that staff the facilities outside of our normal hours of operation, whether it be programs in the evening time, the weekends, or weekend parties. That's typically what our building attendants staff. So kind of good news for us, getting our staff back. We'll also be bringing back our second full-time recreation leader position to accommodate the softball leagues and our weekend and evening programming. So the staff is increasing over here, and I thought that was worth mentioning. Kind of big news. And just day to day, we've been spending a lot of time working with the community on a lot of upcoming events and functions, including the Make It Main Street Festival. And Matthew will fill us in on some details a little bit later for that. And then the September Latino Independence events hosted by ALOS. And as Matthew mentioned, the good old fashioned 4th of July parade. So yeah, we've been working with the community on all the events coming up and helping put those together and get those going. And yeah, that's all the updates I have today. Sorry there wasn't more. Last meeting I mentioned, we're getting going with our camps. Those are just about to start in about a week and a half. So we're looking forward to those and just really prepping up and getting ready for the summer activities. So that's all I have today for my updates.
Okay. All right. I just want to, before we move on, Jonathan, I want you to make a note that on the Hillary mentioned to me, and I think it's important note that on our minutes from last time, that one of the things that was not really, sort of particularly put in a way that happened, which is the volleyball. The volleyball is not just at the beach that we're looking at that. We're looking at anywhere to do the sand volleyball courts. That could be done not specifically at the beach, but also in other areas. So we need to make sure that that's in there, because that is, that's an important thing to many of our members here on the commission, and we want to see it happen. So we want to make sure that all the appropriate notes are being taken about this issue. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Paulette.
Next, the Parks Master Plan implementation. Is that John? Hello, John.
Sorry.
Greetings.
I'm a little rusty here, but let me come up here on one air. Sorry, let's see here. So you mentioned it. Hopefully this is coming up. So we had a fabulous opening, and sorry, now it's going weird here, of the Frenchman's Creek Park.
Very nice. I see Debbie. Yeah, I see Debbie and
Pat Black was there representing you folks excellently. And we had the mayor, vice mayor was there, and a whole host of others. Maria from friends spoke. And it was just an incredibly wonderful event. And mask or without mask, it was great. And I think the sign of an incredibly good event is that, particularly when you're opening the play equipment, is the kids were screaming and playing on the equipment the entire time we were trying to, as adults, have a grand opening. And I think that was the greatest sign of a wonderful thing happening there. So we're really pleased. The work was great. I think the equipment itself is really wonderful. And I hope each of you, if you haven't had a chance, will pop out there. And I will jump into sort of the next piece of that question, which is what's ahead for the coming year. As Matthew noted, the budget was adopted. Along with the budget was the capital budget. And that capital budget includes some I think, really good things for the future. One is that we are definitely going to be looking at trying to move forward with the phase 2 of Frenchman's Creek Park, meaning landscape improvements, parking lot improvements, and notably swing set improvements. That will require a coastal development permit and environmental review and some processing. So that's not an immediate step, but that's something that my staff, the maintenance staff, are looking forward to taking on and pretty much running most of the at least on-site work, and we'll contract out the paving and work there. So that's something we're definitely looking at for the coming year. We also, in the capital budget, have funding to install a new swing at Ocean View Park. And we are also looking at replacing the rubberized surface at Oak Park, as well as putting in turf area, irrigation and turf area for play area for Oak Park as well. And then we are also, I think everybody's aware, working on preliminary work with the Seymour Park site for the potential location of a community gardens, and that's also included in funding for working on that community gardens project. So those are just kind of the highlights. Happy to answer any questions, and I can come back with a little more detail as we get those moving forward. I mean, we obviously, the budget becomes effective July 1, so we're not even to effective dates. So you can't hassle me yet about not having things done. Only after July 1 you can do that.
Get ready. Okay. Fellow commissioners, you have any questions for John?
I do.
Go ahead, Hillary.
In terms of like the various improvements that you were mentioning, like the re-rubberizing or adding the swing or those various park projects, how do the different, how do those different things get prioritized? For example, there's rubberizing and then there's like community garden. And then there's this question of if there's like an opportunity to build beach volleyball, all of the things are going to have to choose how be prioritized. And so I'm just curious how that, like Oak Park is the first time I've heard of it. And I was curious how you're prioritizing that and making those decisions.
Excellent question.
Sure. I mean, the primary, ultimately the council decides how much money they're going to allocate. And one of our biggest challenges is, as with anything, is trying to figure out, how do you allocate and divvy up a limited amount of funding. And so that does always drive the ultimate allocation of resources and funding. The primary areas, one of our first areas we focus on in our prioritization and recommendations to the council, and ultimately coming back through this commission and the planning commission, is on a number of factors. One of those being, do we have, a couple of the really prime ones are, we have a major health and safety concern and issue with it. Or two, we have grant funding that is at danger of being lost those are two of the big pieces. We have not had a lot of grant funding associated with parks and parks related issues, simply because that just has not been something that have been made available to us competitively, or they haven't made available to anybody over the last times. So one of the issues that the health and safety and reason why the rubberized surface replacement comes up is it is a health hazard and a safety hazard. It's why Frenchman's Creek Park play equipment had reached the point of needing replacement. It was unsafe, and that's how that ultimately landed in the prioritization. So that's one of the key pieces to what we always come back with and recommend on that. With regard to, let's take the issue of the volleyball. At this point, yeah, there is yet to be identified a location for that, and frankly, the master plan itself, that was barely touched on, and it's something that I recommend that we come back and we can talk with Matthew about timing for that, and maybe come back and start to reevaluate that aspect within the parks master plan itself, and to start thinking about and identifying that as more of a priority coming forward. We remain completely open to the idea, and what I can tell you is it's not off of our radar. It is on our radar, and I can say that we've spoke to state parks about trying to look at it, not necessarily on the beach itself, but on areas and facilities they own. And it's a challenge. We're also looking at in the coming year the potential for we have been approached by someone who may look at making a donation to improve Smithfield parking areas and some areas related to that. We are going to be looking at sort of a remaster planning a little bit of Smithfield if that starts to move forward. And part of that would be to look at, can we put a couple of full-size regulation beach volleyball courts in at the Smithfield area. So those are all things that staff is looking at just from that specific issue with that. What I will say is that this year's with COVID and all the issues going, everything was a little chaotic. And normally we would come to you in optimally in March as the Parks and Rec Commission to talk about the list that we're out there and get greater input than we were able to seek this year. And I really apologize for that. It was not optimal in terms of what your prioritization issues are with that. So that's something that really was sort of missed this year in a great way, simply because of the crunch of not knowing where we were going to be financially and how the COVID was affecting everything on that. So I've rambled and babbled, so I'll just stop and answer any further question on that clarification.
Okay, anyone else?
Well, I think, and where Hillary's going with that is how do we get volleyball to be included in the priorities? Because, again, it's a big focus of this particular commission. Realize, we might not be able to do it immediately, but how do we get to that? What would be your recommendation there?
Okay, I just want to insert here that, John, you may not remember, I don't know why, but you may not, that when it came, let's say, to Frenchman's Creek Playground, we all voted on that to move ahead with that.
Yes.
So we did set that priority.
You
and
did.
I think that it's important, as Hillary and Adam are bringing up, and I totally agree, this is the commission that should be helping you set those priorities as to what you're going to do and where the money is going to be spent. And if you remember 3 years ago or 4 years ago, the community garden, for instance, was not on the radar. It was in there somewhere in the fine print, but it wasn't on our radar. One of our commissioners put it on the radar. got moving with it, got support from city council, and suddenly it became a priority. So having said that, Hillary and Adam, you know, are both very much strong proponents of the volleyball, which I am also supportive of. So this may end up like the community garden, suddenly moving up into the higher priority level. But this is something the commission should be working on in terms of setting those priorities with your help and input as to what, you know, things like grants and things like why you would want to go ahead with this first versus, you know, versus later or whatever, so that we can all make those decisions.
Can I jump in here? And I think you know, everything we've heard is correct from all perspectives. You know, going back to the facilities master plan and how we prioritize things, one of the strongest statements that was made in the Parks master plan was the community wants to see the city take good care and maintenance of our existing facilities before we develop and build new facilities and invest in new facilities. Because we do have to remember, when you build something new or you buy something new and add facilities, the smallest cost is the initial development. The biggest cost is that ongoing commitment of resources to keep something well-maintained, functional, safe, all those things. And so, to John's point, the first thing we look at when we're doing our capital improvement plan is, what do we already have that we need to take better care of? And that's exactly what's happening with some of these parks. And unfortunately, our funds are so limited that looking at additional facilities is not really this year going to happen. But also, to Chair Eisen's point, the Parks Master Plan is an important guide to help us in the long term take what the community gave us and implement what they want. But certain things will bubble up as times change, as life changes. And I think the beach volleyball courts are clearly something that have bubbled up. And so I just want to assure the commission, as John said, this is absolutely on our radar. And I'll tell you, our city manager, Bob Nisbet, this has been on his radar since day one, before he heard from the community. He just came in and the first thing he said is, why don't we have beach volleyball courts? The hardest part about that, I think, than anything, is finding a location. The city has very limited land that can actually be developed. And I think we're doing a lot of work in all of our discussions about places like Smithfield, Magnolia Seymour Park, any place that we have an opportunity to look at new facilities and development. The first thing that comes up is the beach volleyball courts. So I want to assure you of that. I think you're doing the right things right now to push this, what is important to you. And I think it's important to you because you've heard that from the community as well. And you'll see it when I present the priorities later on for the commission. But the first step absolutely has to be, we have to find a location first. And it's not just a location that could work, it's got to be environmentally feasible, which is the biggest challenge we have in Half Moon Bay. It's got to be something we have control over or a path to control over. And then I think we start looking at, how do you develop it? How do you maintain it? What's that going to cost? How do you get those funds and make sure that it's committed? So I think you're doing the right things. I think we're on the right path. I'm going to throw out there that a pump track is another one of those types of items that didn't really come up during the Parks Master Plan, but has come up every day since. And so that also is on the list of, once we find a location, we start identifying ways to make it happen. And I'll share later some work around that. But, you know, and John's right, this year was not a normal year. We had no idea what our budget was going to look like until May. And normally we know much better in February and March what our budget's going to look like. So we're just dealing with a lot of unknowns right now and having to be really flexible as information changes. At one point, we thought that American Recovery Act funding would be extra gravy, icing on the cake that we could use for new special projects. It turned out we needed that just to balance the budget, to do a little more than we did last year. So as hopefully as the economy recovers and our budget stabilizes and gets back to where it was, we'll be able to make more decisions based on what do we want as opposed to what do we have to do. Because right now we're still kind of in what do we have to do mode.
All right, very good. Now I have a comment and a question. One comment is, don't forget about Kehoe Park. I hear never any mention of that. Meantime, I've been living here with this park that's been pretty useless right here constantly. And I go by it almost every day and I look at it and go, when are we ever going to do anything about Kehoe Park? My question is, the picture, nice picture here about Frenchman's Creek opening, was that posted on our Facebook page? Did it get into the newspaper? And did it get into Nextdoor? Those are our main ways to communicate what's going on. I don't think, from what I understand, I don't think I saw anything in the newspaper, and I certainly didn't see anything on Nextdoor. So why are we not maximizing these situations so that people are aware of what the city is doing for them, and also Friends of Half Moon Bay Parks and Recreation? So
I'm happy to answer that. And I'll have to check with communications about Nextdoor. I thought I saw it posted on Nextdoor. It was supposed to be posted on Nextdoor. It certainly was in our e-news and in our social media. We were very disappointed both before the event, during the event, and after the event that the review chose not to cover this. We sent them a direct invitation. We sent them, pictures. For whatever reason, it did not bubble to their radar, and that's unfortunate.
It is. That is.
And we feel like we have a good partnership and relationship with them. So I don't know. I don't know if you've heard, but they're having yet another turnover of their main writer, which it seems like every 6 to 8 months they've got a new main writer, which is unfortunate because they've had great folks and we've developed these great relationships, and then they end up leaving. So that may be part of it. I'm not going to speak for them, but we pushed really hard for the review to publicize this, and they didn't send anybody to the event. They didn't publish any of the information we sent to them. So
I would also say this. I think there were almost 40 people there, kids, people, and all that. So I think the word got out within the community and everything with that deal. And while I think we all agree we would like the Half Moon Bay review to cover sort of the balance of good and bad, whatever, with this deal and the good stories, but there was also, almost 40 people there who had a great time and were really appreciative of it. And I don't want to lose sight of the importance of that, and the fact that we actually had that kind of event kind of coming out of the COVID was just a great experience.
Oh, absolutely. It looks wonderful. It looks fantastic. It's just, that's the thing that we have been talking about for years now, of making sure that we are tooting our horn to the community. I mean, 40 people is great, but we've got over 12,000 people in Half Moon Bay, and I'm sure most of them did not know this was happening. So that's what we have to get to. We have to get that publicity, that PR piece out. Is Colleen still doing this stuff?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, I will say at least we did a groundbreaking. So first of all, I mostly agree, but at least we did a groundbreaking ceremony. When we did the stairs at Poplar, we didn't really even do anything. And that's been a huge change in the community. And we really, so this is at least the next level forward. The next time we do it, maybe we can take even the next level beyond that, and tooting our horn. But I agree, anytime we accomplish anything, we got to do it. But at least we did a groundbreaking. We had the event. There's a ribbon cutting. It's better. It's good.
Yeah, I'm just sorry I couldn't be there, but nevertheless, let us move on. Thank you so much, John.
Thank you.
And somebody else?
I have a comment. This is Pat.
Yeah.
So the first thing I'd like to make a comment is about Frenchman's Creek. I'll tell you, it was really impressive, and it was the neighbors. And there were a couple of neighbors that were they were questioning the whole idea. And I'll tell you, everybody was so happy and so surprised. And what it showed was how the city, John's leadership insofar as developing this park, going through COVID and, just taking care of business. And the children was so, you didn't hear kids whining and crying. What you heard, you watched them. They would just, and it was really neat. It was really neat to see all these children just having a good time. And it was very, very impressive. And the second thing I want to make a comment about is that I got a phone call from a friend of mine who had a gathering at Ocean View Park. And she was over the moon about Ocean View Park and the facilities and everything going on. And just pretty excited about it. And I just said, well, thanks so much for the call. I appreciate it. I'll share it. And she did send me 2 pictures of one of her grandchildren coming down the slides. And you could just see it on their face. So a lot of good things are happening in our parks. And I'm just so proud of it because parks are my thing. And anyway, if you get a chance to go up and see Frenchman's Creek to see the new facilities, it's really neat. So anywho, and we need to definitely, the outreach has to be, for whatever reason, all you can do is give information. It's not necessarily that that the outlets are gonna follow through on it. But anyway, it was a good job. Thank you all.
Very good. Thank you, Pat. All right.
Chair Eisen, before we move on, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
One of our audience members had put a question in the Q&A section. If I can just answer it really quickly.
Okay.
The question is, actually, I'll bring it up. So it's from Abby and Sean, and they asked, how will residents be invited to comment on development and plans for Magnolia Seymour Park? I'll actually get into a little more detail on this later, but I'll just answer now. We're currently working with an architect to develop the master planning process. The process that we've used for other parks and the model that we'll use here is right now we're going through all of our baseline environmental studies. It's kind of the technical stuff that you have to do to understand what your current situation is. And that allows the architects to figure out what can happen. They'll do some very, very high level conceptual ideas. And the very first thing we'll do is a community meeting. So, and that one will likely be on site. So Abby and Sean, I'll put my email address in the chat if you want to shoot me an email or John an email, and we'll make sure you're invited to that directly. But there will be lots of outreach to the community in general, but specifically to the neighborhood surrounding that park to submit feedback and ideas for what kind of amenities you want to see there, how you want it to look, how it will impact the community. And I see they're adding, we did have an arborist take a look and they identified the red-tailed hawk nests, and that will impact schedule and the work that we can do there. So that's all being addressed, and we really appreciate your care and thoughtfulness on that park. And it looks like you've already, you say it found no nests. I think the arborist report found the nests, so we're aware of it, and that'll be considered in all the work.
The biologist, not the arborist.
It was the biologist that identified it? Okay. So really appreciate the questions from the community, and we'll keep the community informed and involved, much like we did with Carter Park, and I think that makes for a better project for everybody.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Bicycle pedestrian master plan implementation. Who's dealing with that?
So let me start with this, and Jonathan can come on, our new Jonathan, Jonathan Wu, and it'll give me a chance to introduce Jonathan anyway. Come on, Jonathan, you show your face.
Show your face. There you are.
There he is. So Jonathan Wu is our new assistant engineer. He came on, he's almost, 6 months now in, I believe. So a strange time to come on as a new employee with no one in the office and around and kind of dealing with that. But Jonathan has hit the ground running. One of the things that we were happy to be able to allow him to cut his teeth on, so to speak, is this project, which is the Poplar Parallel Trail, which is in grave need of replacement. I think we can find absolute consensus on that. One of the things I've suggested, following some conversations, is that we at least quarterly, if not bi-monthly, come back and talk a little bit more about what we're doing in terms of the bike ped master planning work and implementation side of things, given that they both go kind of hand in fist with the parks and side of that program, and ultimately recreation as a whole. So this is our first run at this, and we're excited to be able to come and give you an update on where we are with regard to this project, and we'll go from there. Jonathan, share your screen and take it away.
Before Jonathan, I would like to get to know people. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself to us? Because we'll probably be seeing a lot of you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the introduction, John. I'm Jonathan Wu. I'm originally from South San Francisco, so very new to the city of Half Moon Bay, and I'm definitely enjoying the city so far and all the residents and coworkers and colleagues that I've interacted with already. And I've studied civil engineering and graduated from San Jose State University. And this is I believe my second year out of college. So I'm very happy and very excited to be a part of the Half Moon Bay team, and excited to serve for the Half Moon Bay community as well.
All right. Very
good. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So, good evening, Chair and Vice Chair and Commissioners. I'm very excited to be giving the update of the Poplar Pedestrian Pathway Project on behalf of the Public Works Department, and what this project is, and where this is happening is right next to or adjacent to the Poplar Street, right next to the Coastal Trail, further west of the city. And as you all might know, it's in a very terrible state. It's very cracked, a lot of tripping hazards, and it really does need to be repaired, because a lot of pedestrians, a lot of bicyclists use this access route from the Arleta Park District. And this is something that needs to be done, and which we will address hopefully soon later on this year. So why are we doing this project? I kind of mentioned it. There's a few options, or there's a few reasons to why we are doing this. There's a thing called crack seal, which you kind of see on every picture on your screen right now. It's those black little marks, which doesn't look too pleasing to the eye, but it does help the pavement a little bit. But again, it doesn't look too pleasing. And there's many tripping hazards. I've walked through this path multiple times, even before coming here to work for the city of Half Moon Bay. And I've talked to some residents, and they've noted that there's a lot of tripping hazards, very dangerous. And there's a lot of potholes in there as well, which is more of a tripping hazard. And these are just a few reasons to why this is something that needs to be addressed. Now, for what we're going to do to the project, or due to this pathway, is what's called full depth reclamation. What it is, it's using the existing soil underneath, and it's strengthening the base by adding an additive to it, or what's called lime. And it's going to strengthen that base, and it's going to make a better stabilization underneath after adding an asphalt. And the existing pathway right now is about 8 to 9 feet, depending on the location of the path. It varies throughout the entire stretch, but it's more so about 8 feet, and we're planning to widen it to 10 feet. But except west of the bridge is what you see in the picture to your right now. That's going to stay 7 feet, or 7 to 8 feet. I believe it's 8 feet, but that's going to stay the same and we're going to do the same exact thing as planned for the entire pathway. Towards the east side of the pathway, there's going to be a little bit of regrading just to meet ADA standards, to comply with them. And there's going to also be some traffic calming. So we're going to install some speed tables through Poplar Pathway, because we have received some calls and some residents mentioning about many drivers or even motorcyclists that speed through that entire stretch of road.
So just to clarify, that's on the street section or the access drive, not on the pathway.
Yes, sorry about that. So yes, that's going to be on Poplar Street, not the pathway. Pathway is just going to stay one even surface, complying with ADA standards. So what we have done so far versus what's remaining and what we're planning to do, what we have done so far is the 90% plans. I have received word from our consultants that we're going to have a draft of the 100% plans, specifications, and estimate by the end of day tomorrow. So that's great to hear that we're almost there. We've also completed the biological resources evaluation. We've also submitted the initial study and mitigated negative declaration, as well as submitted for CEQA through the state. What we have remaining is the Planning Commission approval, which we are set to go on the July 13th agenda. We need the CEQA approval as well, and we're, like I mentioned, we're almost there to the final bid documents for the plan specs and the project estimate. Now, for the schedule, what we have right now tentatively, we're shooting to start for the beginning of September and hoping to end by the rainy season of October, around October 15th. And of course, this is dependent on possible delays, like weather delays or contractor delays possibly. But again, this is a tentative start and finish to when we plan to do this project. And I am very happy to answer any questions anybody might have. And I appreciate the time you guys gave me to allow me to present this amazing project.
Hey, can I give a kudos to Adam? He's got his hand raised there, but I want to jump on this first and say, you know, this is in great part because of Adam's work as a council member. He made sure this got pushed forward during the COVID reallocation of funds later on in the current fiscal year, and made this part, you know, this really happen, allow us to move forward with it. So before he speaks, I wanted to at least give him his props for his role in making this a priority, and other commissioners and community members have also made that, but Adam listened and brought that forward. So thank you for doing that and allowing us to move forward.
Excellent.
Thank you, Adam.
Very kind. Very kind. Hey, great work, Jonathan. Nice presentation. Great to meet you. Welcome aboard. We're psyched to have you here. I have a couple questions. First one, did we end up going, I understand that you're doing the lime underneath, and I have actually no idea what that means really, but are we going with concrete on top, or did we end up going with DG?
We ended up going with asphalt on top, similar to what is existing as well. We're still in the mix of adding a DG kind of shoulder on the side, or if we're just using header board on the side to keep it intact. But at the moment, we're sticking with replacing what's existing.
No worries, all good. I love that. So now, you know, or maybe you don't, but you've probably been versed because John's got all the history on this place. We've had our own various incidences with concrete pathways, right? And, you know, one good example is the one that came in from Cameron's to, I don't know, Poplar Street almost. And, you know, after the person installed it, within about 3 or 4 years, it had eroded at such a level that we actually sued them and won money, back based on the work that has been done with that. I'm wondering, is there a way to ensure that that doesn't happen in this location? Because we know there's the water currents underneath, and we know it gets cold and all the different aspects. And I think at one point we were talking about having to dig almost like 8 feet down in order to make sure that this didn't happen, or 4 feet down or something like that. But my question is, can we assure ourselves that that wouldn't happen, A? And B, can we make sure that the contract is written in such a way that if it does happen, we have an immediate way to deal with it, easier than suing, and so that way we can deal with it more upfront? Do those questions make sense?
Yeah.
I'll run with this one, since, sorry, the sun is blasting me in my office.
No, it looks good.
You know, since I had the pleasure of dealing with the other item, but clearly we are designing this to the highest standard that we can within a reasonable threshold for budgetary reasons, right? We cannot guarantee anything. The contractor will not guarantee. No engineer will guarantee. But the reason we are looking at this as a full depth recovery and not as an overlay or just kind of live with that is we recognize that the base needs to be improved and stabilized. The good thing, and if you recall in that other situation, actually the contractor had imported in really poor clay soil, which led to expansion and contraction and major issues with this. So we're fortunate that we don't have a clay underlying this, and we certainly are not going to allow clay base to be brought in and deal with it. So we'll have the geotech work on that soil work. We'll have the lime treatment going on, and we'll put this down and do absolutely the best we possibly can. But again, guaranteeing absolute, no, but it will last a long time and should not create those problems because of all those things that we're doing. But over time, things can and will happen.
All right, I like the answer. Because at least we're on top of it. So I could not be more happy to hear that this project is moving forward. That trail is all over the place. I think Bubby, I was walking with Chair Eisen not that long ago, and I saw her, fall into one of those things where she was talking to me as we were walking down that path. And so I'm excited to see that thing fixed. I feel like I've been nervous about a lawsuit on the city for a long time with that one. So I'll be happy to see it fixed. I love the 10 feet. I think that's whoever came up with that. I mean, the widening, and I know that's part of the other plan, but just kudos. I think that's great. And then if we can get at least a little bit of DG on the side, I think that would benefit us greatly. If we can't, so be it, but just throwing it out there. Thank you so much, and that's all I got on that one.
All right, anyone else? Okay, Jonathan, I absolutely, I've been, now whenever I travel now, I travel with an eye to trails, to parks, to, all these things that are in our purview here of Parks and Rec. So I look at other places a lot, and there is no question, everywhere I've been so far, every trail has the side DG for pedestrians. Because for instance, on that path that we're talking about here, the Poplar, if you have two bicycles on that path in opposite directions, even with 10 feet, there is not room for a pedestrian. That pedestrian needs to be able to go off to the side, to the DG, so that they're safe, but that they have an option. So it's really important to have that. I have seen that everywhere for, I'm sure, this very reason. So I'm hoping that that is absolutely taken into serious consideration to make sure that does happen. Thank you for your presentation. Yeah, thank you.
I have one more.
So brought up stuff. All right, here we go.
our hope and intention is to do that. Our challenge is, and as community members and everything, the balance is that the environmental side of things, and we're just trying to, to deal with that and the biotic report and all the things. And this is the challenge of the coast side and developing in this area. So we're, to the extent that we can, that is our objective and our desire to do that design.
Right.
We agree with you that that's the best possible path that we can make.
That's good. Very good.
I got one more. I'm
Adam?
sorry. What is the general plan? And it might not be fleshed out yet, and that's fine. But just for like relocation, or what is our plan for what we're going to do while that path is shut down? Because it's still a pretty prime time. There's going to be people, lots of cars on the road. And then I don't want people necessarily, I hate it when people cut through I consider it the protected habitat area, but maybe that's what we have to do during the time period. But I don't want to encourage that by any stretch of the imagination, because there keeps being more and more paths in that area, and it drives me up the wall, because I'm like, that's got to be protected area as far as I'm concerned. But what are your thoughts on that, and just in terms of what we can do?
We certainly are going to be looking at that, and a lot of this hits with the time of year. And one would say, well, why didn't we get to this earlier? Well, we might have been able to get it early. No, for other folks in the community, we definitely did not want to be in the midst of having this shut down in the middle of the summer rush out there. So we're trying, and one of the reasons we're pushing this as late as we are is trying to push it out away from the usual summer rush as much as possible after Labor Day, holiday weekend, and all those things with that. We're certainly going to have to look at it. My feeling is we're going to have to try to probably create some form of pathway along the edge of the drive aisle and try to hope that people are going to be reasonable. But we really have to look at that, and that's part of what we're going to be evaluating down the road in terms of that. We certainly will not be pointing people to take those non-approved locations and dealing with that. So it's going to have to be related to the existing street, and then we have to worry about that because we're going to be looking at putting the speed tables on that section of road. So it's going to be an interesting balancing act with that. I'll note that the speed tables will have the openings and the pathways, which one, allow the fire trucks to get through without being impeded, and two, they'll allow bikes to actually go down through there without having to go up and over the speed table as well. So we are looking at both of those issues in the design. So we will be working on that, and I'm guessing that by the time we come back in around August, September, we can make a report back to the Parks and Rec Commission on what the recommendation is for the detour and route, and get that out to the community more. So let's just plan on that. We'll do that.
Okay. Yeah.
Good. I'd like to make sure that we get that proactively out even a month before the project starts, so people know what their alternate plans are going to be. And again, back to it, the different, hopefully the newspaper, hopefully through our e-news, and then again through what's that horrible thing?
Well, next door.
Next door. Thank you. Yeah.
I want to call it something else, but
yeah. Very good point. I think that is really important, and it will be challenging, John, no doubt about it. Because let's face it, September, October is our summer months, so people will still be coming, until it starts pouring rain. At which point we can't work on the project, but then there's nobody here. That's when we have to. And
I mean, to be very honest, we may just have to shut the parking lot down for a short period of time so we can deal with all of this issue. I mean, obviously in the speed tables, we probably can't keep activity headed that way. So that's why we need to come back and talk about it and deal with it, and try to reroute folks to state parks in that time and deal with it. So we have some work to do You know, it's never easy out there.
Yeah.
But the good news is at least it'll be after Labor Day. And we'll do the best we can to try to accommodate particular locals' access there, and keep it as safe as possible for everybody.
Yeah.
And John, I'm sure you know this already. Sorry, real quick. There is that route around by like the end of Railroad. You know, and I would think that in the ideal, we would just push all locals to go back that way for the month. I mean, it's not that much of an inconvenience for 2 months, 3 months, whatever it's going to be. But just an FYI, it might be good to just walk those different areas.
We're hoping this is, you know, around a month in terms of construction time, meaning hopefully 2 weeks of real heavy construction. This is the schedule challenge we're going to have and deal with it but our, you know, but a lot of this work we think can be done in a 2 to 3 week window of work. So it's a fairly short period of time that we should have a real, as I say, a mess out there that we're going to try to work around.
Yeah, and then lastly, just to put up time, you know, back to a month prior to everything.
Adam, we can't hear you properly. I don't know what's going on with your sound. Can you try again?
What about now?
Yeah, good.
Okay. So just to get signs up on the path beforehand, and I know you'll do that, but just I knowing, being a former city council member, I know how you can get flooded when people don't know about topics before they come. So I just want to make sure that we protect our council and make sure that that's out there. Yeah, thanks.
Gotcha.
I just had one question about the alternative paths. Are you thinking that the road itself will be full of equipment and therefore people can't walk on the road? Or are you just worried about people in cars together?
Who's the question for?
For me?
I guess, Adam, you brought it up, but I feel like the city is kind of agreeing with you on your approach. So either of you.
Yeah, well, me personally, and I don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm worried that if we shut the path way down, I can see people wanting to walk down the road. And then if the road is open to traffic during that time period, which, as John said, maybe we just shut the parking lot down for a couple of weeks. Well, that's a great solution. You know, different ways to deal with it. Yes, that is what I'm concerned about.
Okay, because I was just going to suggest that possible ways to help mitigate that. I mean, like during COVID, people were constantly walking down the road to stay further apart. So I don't think that's anything super new, but obviously it will be more extreme with no path. But in the morning, in particular, when there aren't a lot of cars, I mean, it might be something where I think no matter what, like if you tell people that there are hours for pedestrians only, or like you limit maybe the car hours a little bit more. For example, a lot of people use the trail first thing in the morning or whatever, like finding those times when you can block cars so that it is safer. That might be helpful if you're worried that it's going to be too dangerous.
Honestly, a lot of this is we just need to, we'll come back and we'll talk about it. We're jamming to try to get to the commission and get the stuff dealt with. Most people are pretty accommodating and pretty happy that when this work is done and they'll work with us. And again, if we have to, the ultimate answer really is to close down the parking lot.
All right.
Direct people to the state parks parking lot, which should have plenty of capacity at that time of year, barring again, and the 120 degrees in the East Bay.
Right.
But our 100 spaces are not going to be the difference in the world even if that heat wave does come upon us right at the wrong time.
Right.
But we got to come back. It's on our list of to-dos. We just want to make sure everybody was aware, and again, the community was aware that we are working on this, and it is planned to be coming soon.
Good. All right, so this will be discussed at a further date in terms of, exactly what the plan is for making sure that that this project can be done, and how to direct our residents and tourists who would be coming to Poplar Beach. Thank you again, Jonathan. And let's go now. Do we have Shahzad for an update from the Friends of Half Moon Bay Parks and Recreation?
Chair Eisen, it doesn't look like she's going to make it, at least now. Maybe we'll catch her later. And I'm going to make one recommendation pending John's feeling. We have item 6D, which is the art deaccessioning report. And John Dowdy's going to give that report. I'm wondering if we could just move that up so that he can complete his work tonight and move on with his life.
Sure, absolutely.
John, is that work for you?
Geez, I'm heartbroken. That'd be great. Appreciate it. And Jonathan, you're there, but if he's there, I think he did a great job. That's his first presentation for us, and I think in general that's his first one to the commission or whatever. And I think he did a great job. And it's a tough thing to do, to even on Zoom, maybe harder on Zoom than actually doing it live. So thank you again, Jonathan.
Yeah, Jonathan seems very comfortable with this, which is very nice. And yeah, so welcome. And again, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
So let's go with John and talk to us about the art.
Golly, I'm trying to find my,
Hey, John, I didn't finish reading your emails.
Yeah, I saw Hawkeye's.
Yeah, there you go. You guys make me crazy.
Deaccessioning report.
So I have it here, but you can't see it. So I'm trying to get there. Why it's not showing up on the deal here. Okay. I've got to do my glasses here and find it.
If you don't find it, why don't you just give us the summary of what happened?
Sure. Gosh, it looked so good too. Trust me, it looked really, really good. So actually, a few weeks ago, staff was doing its regular review of the parks and going through and ultimately one of those routes is through Kitty Fernandez Park. I think you're all aware and familiar with Kitty Fernandez, and there were two statues, one of a gentleman and one of a female, and basically what we noticed was that the concrete was really spalling horribly, and there had been some picking of it and large chunks below it. And ultimately, if you looked at it more closely, it's something that we had been monitoring and watching, but basically the superstructure was really rusting and starting to rust away and rust through. And our concern at that point was that this was reaching the point of no return for anything other than removal. And our concern was for public safety. Our call was to Matthew and the city manager's office to discuss this, recognizing that the deaccession policy actually, in an optimal situation, would require Parks and Rec Commission review before we made took any action. And basically what this was an after the fact. There we go.
Is it gone? That's the question.
I'm telling you, I did such a wonderful job with it. Thank you for sharing that. So basically on the deaccession policy was put in place because we had several pieces of art around in the city, and there had been no agreements made with the artist about how we would approach those when their end of life came, or when they wanted to take them back, or when their family might want to take them back. And you saw those policies twice, made comments on them, and that policy was ultimately approved by the council. What we're basically following in this one was the highlighted section, which is the physical or structural condition poses a threat to public safety. And if you go to the next one there, basically this reflects the circled area is the spalling of the concrete from that point. Next slide, you can see the superstructure exposed and more spalling and more pieces and chunks down on the ground and throwing. So basically when we discovered this, we coned this off, we taped it off, and basically contacted Matthew in the city manager's office to say, we think we have a significant public safety hazard here, and we don't see this returning from the brink other than probably being removed. As part of that, Matthew asked that Victor contact the next slide, contact the Coastal Art League, as well as the Historical Association, to make sure that they were aware that we were contemplating doing a removal of this, and ask whether they had concerns and issues and whether any of them wanted the remnant pieces of this upon the removal, and both said no. Yes, they agreed it was a public safety threat, and two, they did not want the pieces after that point.
John, can I add a little bit to that piece?
Sure.
So we also contacted the IDES organization. So for those of you who don't know this, and you live your whole life on the coast side, and a lot of people think that Kitty Fernandez is a woman, or you just don't know. Kitty Fernandez was one of the early founding fathers on the coast side. He was mayor of Half Moon Bay. It's a gentleman. Kitty was his nickname. Prominent member of the Portuguese community. And so the park was named after him. And so we contacted the IDES Society. I don't believe they ever responded on this particular issue, but the son of Kitty Fernandez, a gentleman named Robert Fernandez, was a longtime Spanish teacher at the high school and one of my favorite people in the whole world. He was my Spanish teacher in high school. And so I reached out to him directly, and that way at least we had contact with the family. The family did not have an emotional attachment to this. They had their own concerns about health and safety, and so they were supportive of this. And then the other piece in reaching out to the Coastal Arts League, they attempted both at the time we were creating this policy and then as part of this process to contact the family of the artist who created this artwork. She's deceased. We're aware of a son that's surviving her, and the contact information is somewhere in Texas. He's been unresponsive in multiple attempts from the Coastal Arts League. And so that's why between the History Association, the Coastal Arts League, and the family that the park has a namesake for, all agreed that the best thing to do in this situation was to remove this piece of artwork. And that's the whole purpose of this policy, is to make sure there's a checklist for the steps you need to take before you remove art or move art.
I think that's excellent, Matthew. Yeah. You checked off all the boxes, and there's a lot of boxes, obviously. And so I think that's very, very good. The only thing I'm wondering about is, what do we have a plan instead? Because that's, it's like, it's one thing to take away, and it's another to okay, it would be good to be able to tell people what's going to be in that place, because everyone hates to have things taken away, regardless if it's an eyesore or anything else. It doesn't seem to matter. They don't like when things are taken away. So, but knowing, let's say, what's going to be in its place, either from a Carter Park was that removed also, or just this one?
No, but I think that's this sets the precedent. It's the same artist.
Stay tuned for that one.
Right.
It'll be coming soon.
Yeah, well, I've been staying tuned for 4 years on that one.
Well, we finally have a process.
We're waiting for a process, and let me just Chair, if I could, we are obviously looking at with the impending completion of work down at the Highway 1 South and Main Street South there. We're certainly looking at what do we do with the Half Moon sculpture there. And so our thought process has been to at least commence a conversation about bringing that sculpture, cleaning it up, getting it ready to go, and perhaps relocating that into Kitty Fernandez Park. I'm thinking more in the context of the round planter that's there rather than in the exact location that this was, because I think it would be it could be a mess there. But that's something that we're looking at and trying to at least have. We need to find a location for that. It's no reason at this point.
I agree. It's funny that I thought about that as soon as you mentioned that. So that might work. I'm just wondering though, you know, we want Kitty Fernandez should be honored in some way. Okay. As first of all, you know, being a founding father of Half Moon Bay. So I don't think we should erase that significance completely. And maybe there's an opportunity either to maybe put a plaque up somewhere of all the mayors of Half Moon Bay and who they've been, that we add to that as years continue to go on. I think that might be a way to at least acknowledge Kitty Fernandez as well as other mayors that have served the Half Moon Bay community. So, you know, I'm just throwing that out there as like one thought. But, you know, I think that we shouldn't, when somebody is being honored and put that effort of a statue and naming a park after that person, to then erase it like it never happened, something doesn't sit well with me on that. And I have a feeling other people would feel similar.
I will say this, that nothing in the record that I've ever seen relates and associates the statue with the Kitty Fernandez. Those were added, they were offered up by this artist. So that it was not a hand and, you know, kind of deal with that. The park was named after Kitty Fernandez. The statues were a completely separate issue from that.
And I can confirm that, John, in the discussions with the History Association, the Main Street Beautification Committee, and the Fernandez family. Kitty Fernandez Park was dedicated, I think, in the 70s. And these statues went in the 90s, and there's absolutely zero connection between the park and Kitty Fernandez and these statues. I will say that in talking with the family, they asked about the other statue, which is the older gentleman sitting in the planters. They actually felt like that had some sort of connection to their father. And so I think, to your point, Chair Eisen, we should explore that. We should explore the condition of that statue to see if it's even, you know, these statues I don't think are going to be easy to repair, which is why they got into the position that they did. They just weren't really built for our coastal environment. But I think, to your point, we want to explore that because that's the feedback we got from the family. And maybe it's a combination, like you said, maybe we work with the Coastal Arts League to do some restoration, or the IDES Society to do some restoration work of the remaining statue. Maybe there's a plaque that goes in next to that talks about who Kitty Fernandez was.
Right.
So we will definitely take that back and we'll work on it. And I'll talk a little bit more tonight about the art policy in general. And I think all of this will help connect some of the dots.
Excellent.
So just to finish up what we're asking tonight, and we again, in the best scenario would come forward in advance, but this one led to really the after the fact report. So we hope that you'll follow this recommendation, which is to accept our report and agree that the physical and structural condition posed the threat and that we needed to remove it. And we checked the boxes, followed the process, and really tried to deal with that. And we is a very broad deal. That's really Matthew and Victor and the crew there. My guys just took it down when we had the authorization to do so.
And so I think what we're looking for is actually a roll call on this so that we can confirm that we followed the policy that's been put in place. And this has been a great kind of litmus test to actually see it in action.
Okay, I will set forth the motion then to approve the procedure that has been followed for the art decommissioning process, and in this case has been applied to the Kitty Fernandez structure. Do I have a second?
I second it. Pat.
Okay. Roll call, Jonathan?
Chair Eisen,
Yes?
Yes.
Vice Chair
Oh, yeah,
Stan,
sorry.
Commissioner Black,
Yes.
Commissioner Eisen,
Yes.
Commissioner Harrow.
Yes.
There you go. All right, very good. Motion has passed. And yes, good work on that, Matthew. I'm so happy we're finally here where we are with this part of it. Now we need to go with the whole public art policy. Really important, but we're finally getting traction and making movement in this whole area. Very good.
Yep. And many thanks to the Public Works team for working closely with this. You know, it's a little bit more bureaucracy than they probably would have liked to deal with, but I think we've learned from it, and it's the right thing to do.
We got to do it. That's right. Okay, very good.
Thank you for inviting us and allowing us to share a little bit tonight. We appreciate it, and we look forward to the next time.
Excellent. Thanks, John. Thanks for being here. All right, let's go into exciting Summer's End Music Festival and Music in the Park update. Eddie, take it away here.
Okay, I'm ready. Okay, so Summer's End Music Festival and Concert in the Park. I kind of updated you guys at the last meeting in regards to Concert in the Park. We've already booked the musicians for all 4 of those days. We also have confirmation from the Half Moon Bay Library that they'll be in attendance at all 4 of those to give away free books and do outreach. Same thing with the Friends of Parks and Recreation. They've committed to showing up and being there at all 4 of those. And also Alas is going to be at all 4 of those. So we'll have a packed Mac Dutra Plaza for the 4 Saturdays in August, hopefully. So I have kind of updated you on that, but that is also where we're going to start because I wanted to provide a little bit of history on the Summer's End Music Festival and how we kind of came up with it. It did start with Concerts in the Park. So some of you might know Concerts in the Park's been going on in Half Moon Bay for a while, at least 15 years. And actually my supervisor in Vallejo was the superintendent here who claims that he started it. So it's been going on for a long time. And the mission for that series of events was to build community through live music at Mac Dutra Plaza and to provide a platform for our local artists to perform for community members and visitors to the city. So the council then decided that was a priority. That was something that they wanted to invest in. And so they set aside money in the budget each year for Concert in the Park. So when I started in 2017, Matthew and I both started right around the same time. We had a senior management analyst for the city manager's office who was kind of holding a lot of things together and trying to make things succeed without a lot of support. And so once I came on and took over the recreation department, that was one of the first things that she handed off to me to bring back to recreation. So I picked it up and ran with it. And after that first summer, I noticed that the budget for the Concert in the Park is pretty substantial. After looking at the numbers and what we spend on it, maybe 20% of the total budget for the Concert in the Park was being used. And then the surplus, of course, is getting rolled into the general fund at the end of the year. So that's where it started, 2017. Well, I looked at the event and I thought, what can we do with this money geared towards this event, the series of events? And that's how we came up with an idea of like a grand finale, essentially, for the Concert in the Park series. And I came up with this idea, I brought it to Matthew. He was on board. At this time, we had a subcommittee in the commission, and that was Nick Ramirez and Paulette. So I took the idea to them and I said, hey, we have this budget for music, for the community. let's do an all-day event, a free all-day event with free activities for the kids, for families, for everybody. And they were on board. We went down and did a field trip to Carter Park, and I kind of showed them what I was envisioning, how it was going to be laid out. And Paulette and Nick were totally supportive of it and brought it back to the commission, and they were on board, and they said, let's do it. So Summers Inn was born. So our first year that we held the event was in 2018, and we booked 3 bands, pretty good bands. One of which was Paulette sent our way, Zanzibar. I don't know if you remember that, Paulette.
Absolutely.
But it was a great first year. The idea was we just give free fun to the community. That was what our intention was. And so we did contract a few kind of artists, I don't know what you'd call them, but a henna tattoo artist and a face painter to come down and just set up shop and be there for the afternoon. And just, we paid them to give away free tattoos and free face painting. And then the kicker was free tacos. That was me and Matthew and I came up with that as like a draw for that first year to get folks out, because everyone loves free tacos. So we had free tacos. We developed a kid zone down there at the event too. So, families would feel comfortable coming down and have things to engage their kids and keep them entertained. So we kind of developed this kid zone where we had an inflatable obstacle course. We had an imagination station and arts and crafts. And we couldn't do this alone, right? So we reached out to the Boys and Girls Club and Half Moon Bay Library and asked if they would be interested in kind of partnering with us in this event. And they agreed, and they did an amazing job. The Boys and Girls Club staff, they ran the inflatable obstacle course, and Half Moon Bay Library managed the imagination station and their arts and crafts. And it was just a really great event. And then we also had the Friends of Half Moon Bay Parks and Rec there to do some fundraising by selling beer and wine. Also, to make the event happen, we needed to find places for certain things. So we obtained permission from the owner of the Stone Pine Plaza to use a portion of their parking lot for our porta potties. We also received permission from the owner of the business complex behind Stone Pine Plaza and Mariners Church to be able to use their parking lot for the event, which they agreed to, and it was great. Good year. The funny thing about events and event planning is that the reflecting time, when you debrief at the end and kind of look at what worked, what didn't work, what was good, what wasn't good. And there's a lot of things, which is to be expected. So we kind of took those back to the drawing board and kind of addressed some of those things in 2019. So one of the things we did in 2019 was, instead of allowing the 3 bands an hour and 15 minutes to perform, we cut that down to 45 minutes. That way we could have a 4th band and just kind of add some diversity to the music that's being presented out there. We also added a free caricature artist. So 2019, now we have 3 activities that are free. And then we didn't want to do food anymore. So we reached out to Aaron from the Cove that's no longer there. But he came down and he sold food down at the event and agreed to give a portion of his profits. We split it between the Raleigh Wright and Seafog, which was Evelyn's community garden group. So that was the second year we held the event. And one of the cool things that we did too that second year was we really put an emphasis on bringing nonprofits from the community down, because it's advantageous for everybody. It's a built-in audience, and it's a perfect venue for nonprofits to conduct outreach and just engage the community. So in 2019, that's what I did. I reached out to 5 nonprofits that I knew that I thought would be a good fit for the festival, and those were, I'm going to pull them up here, the American Board of Childhood Diabetes, the Pacific Beach Coalition, Seafog, the Community Garden Group, ALOS, and the Coastside State Parks. Now, I picked those, and there wasn't much thought behind it other than I deal with them through the recreation department. I'm familiar with them. So it was an easy pick for me. And it was a great event that year. We saw, I think, over 1,000 people throughout the day. But again, there were areas that we wanted to make sure that we addressed for the next year. One was recycling. We did a good job of making sure there's enough trash receptacles throughout the event for all the trash. But one thing Matthew noticed pretty instantly that I didn't was that we didn't have any recycling bins. And that was kind of a big deal. So that was a hiccup, and we're going to fix that this coming year. And another thing that we noticed in 2019 was we don't have any, like an EMS or an EMT, a nurse, a first responder, someone there to kind of address any situation, medical or whatever that might happen. And that came up because something did happen in 2019. And thank goodness it wasn't anything super awful, but a woman did get lightheaded and kind of passed out a little bit. And we were just kind of there not knowing what to do. And so that was another area in 2019 that we decided that we wanted to address for the next year. So having someone there with some medical knowledge and ability would be good for us. So looking to this year, we've confirmed 3 of the 4 bands that we want to book. I was going to make a video for you, some of the bands, but it's really hard to rip videos from YouTube and use them. So I'll just tell you their names. The Winfields, Hazel English, and Local Coast Tribe. Those are the 3 bands that we've confirmed for this year. Now, the 4th band is up in the air. We really wanted them, but lucky for them, they ended up getting a spot on America's Got Talent, which is good for them, but bad for us because it's probably going to make it harder for us to get them. But that's something that we're working on figuring out here in the next week or 2 if they'll be able to show up for the event. But yeah, so that's where we are with our musicians. All 3 of our free activity vendors, the caricature artist, the face painter, the henna tattoo, they've all been confirmed for this year, as well as the Boys and Girls Club to run the inflatable obstacle course, the Half Moon Bay Library to do the arts and crafts and imagination station, and the Friends of Half Moon Bay Parks and Rec are going to come back and do some fundraising by selling some beer and wine. So some good news. But as we continue to plan for this year's event, we thought there were a few areas that the commission would be interested in helping out with, or at least providing some input. And one thing I think just kind of makes sense just from the numbers is the amount of nonprofits that we bring down to the event. It's a tight space down there with a lot of people and a lot of activities. So we don't want to really overload Carter Park with too much stuff and just make it feel too congested. But our nonprofit tent, it fits 6 nonprofits pretty well in there. And the Friends of Half Moon Bay Parks and Recreation are one of those 6. And that leaves us with 5 nonprofits. So I thought it'd be fun to open up the discussion with the commission to see if you all might be interested in kind of identifying one nonprofit each. Someone that you're close with, a group that you're passionate about their mission or whatever the case may be. But I thought, this year it might be cool to get you guys into that area of it. And that way you kind of put your print on the event and yeah, you contribute to it. And I thought that would be a fun place for us to start talking. Also, every year we like to add something to the event. We've been really good the last few years of investing in things for the event that we can reuse year to year. For example, signage and banners, the backstage banner that we purchased, just things geared to the event that we can reuse year to year. So this year, our idea is we want to bring on a 4th activity, in addition to the caricature and the henna and the face painting. And we thought maybe you all might have some input to provide in regards to that. And even the future of the event and just opening up a discussion about your ideas and direction you think should be considered in planning for the event. So that's kind of the backstory. That's where we were, that's where we are now. And I'd just, like to go ahead and open it up to you guys and get a discussion going.
All right. Very good. Thank you so much, Eddie. Commissioners, any questions, comments to Eddie?
Yeah, let me start. So first, excellent event. I think I was so impressed. I don't know which years I've been. I think most of the years so far, but it's been fun. Carter Park's been in its glory. The bands have been great. I'm really appreciative of what you've done for the community. This is exactly what I would want to see. And I'm psyched. I'm happy to be involved in the nonprofit piece. If you want to take that on, I'm happy to just have you do it as well. I mean, but if people want to get involved in that, I'm a big fan of Sea Hugger in the community here. They also have one of those bins, I believe, where you can find out how much plastic is in the sand. So you get a sense. I mean, that's more something you usually do at the beach, but they're really good people, and they've been really good to this community and do a bunch of beach cleanups and things like that. So that would be my suggestion from that side. And the woman who runs it's just fantastic, co-sider. But keep it going. I'm psyched. I think you do a great job with this event. Thanks for everything you do. It's all I got.
Thanks, Adam.
Louise, do you have anything? I'd like to hear from you. Any ideas for Eddie for this event?
Not that come to mind at the moment, but I'm sure something will in the future.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, so Eddie, I've got a few things here. One is, tell us about these bands and what kind of music they play and what kind of ethnic makeup they come from.
Okay, perfect. So we'll start with the opener, Hazel English. She's a Bay Area musician. She's a woman, a white woman, and she plays a really kind of new age. She has an eclectic style, and again, the beauty of the event is that it can be diverse, and we don't have to do all country. We don't have to do all rock, and it's even better to just have diversity in that and a spectrum of different types of music.
No question. That's what I really want to see. So yeah good.
Okay, so she would be the opener. We have the Winfields here from California. They're a 4-person band, 2 females, 2 males. And they kind of switch during their performance. So the lead singer will be on drums one song and playing guitar the next. They're all very talented, and they have a very unique style of music. I would say it's kind of a rockabilly. I would say that's their style of music. They're all white, and I know we're at 100% white so far, but we're changing it. So the third band, Coast Tribe, they're all local guys. Now they're all male, but Latino. There's some diversity in their group. And then the band that we're hoping to get, Matthew knows this family, and it's a family band. But they are a family of color, right, Matthew?
Yeah. So
have they played here before?
They have not.
Oh,
no, they're from San Francisco. They're called the Curtis Family C Notes, and they're actively participating in America's Got Talent right now, which is the only reason why they're even up in the air. The husband is African American, the wife is Tongan, and so they're a really diverse family. They have 5 children. 4 girls, 1 boy. They all play instruments. They're kind of, they dress like the Jackson 5, and they play a lot of old funk soul. They're amazing. The wife is a good friend of mine from 20 years, going back 20 years. And they're incredibly talented. And if we can't get them this year, we will definitely get them next year. Although if they win America's Got Talent, I'm not sure we can afford them anymore.
Right.
So we'll see.
All right. If that doesn't pan out, one of the bands that played at, I think it was the Pumpkin Festival, whatever, I thought they were fabulous, called Afrolicious.
Yeah, we've had them before.
And
haven't we, Eddie?
Yeah,
we haven't had them at Summer's End.
Yeah, they were last year, or in 2019. Yeah.
Yep. So let me jump in real quick.
And they were great. That's the thing.
Yeah. Afrolicious was great. It's funny booking bands because Afrolicious, while they were great, in their promo pictures and things, it kind of shows them with a very diverse group, a band, several, like 7, 8 people, and they showed up with 4, and it wasn't the same people. So while they were great, I don't think we got the full Afrolicious at Summer's End 2019, but they were awesome. Now, to what you're saying, the scenario, what if they don't come? What if we can't get this band? Well, a band that we really liked, and Paula, you're going to give me some props on this, was Zanzibar. They're an Afro.
Yeah, I know, but they're another white band. Let's try and get something with color.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's just Zanzibar straight out. Let's just get some band that is with color so that we have a real mix and we're not just this white vanilla thing going on here in Half Moon Bay. We want diversity, and it should be displayed. The Bay Area is full of diversity. Let's reflect it.
Okay, done.
Okay, Luis, did you have something? No.
Yeah, I was just going. I mean, mariachi band would be cool. Throwing something for the Hispanic community in here. I think that'd be cool. Get them more involved. For sure.
Exactly. I like that too, but not necessarily a mariachi band, but I've come across a number of bands which have a great mix, like a really good mix of music with some, very Latin part of their music, some rock music, some this, but the band itself is almost all Latino. So that would be another avenue.
Absolutely.
And it would be great. Yeah. As far as
Absolutely.
the nonprofits are concerned, I have to say that because this year the Pumpkin Festival is canceled, the nonprofits are kind of left out in, left field, so to speak. I think that it would be good to let nonprofits vie for a spot at Summer's End. And if you have a lot of nonprofits that are trying to get into one of those 5 spots, then I think we should do kind of like a lottery and pick 5 of the nonprofits that are wanting to be there, and and have that as a way for them to be there. But I really think that we should let the nonprofits, put it out to the nonprofits that you have an opportunity if you want to be at Summer's End, that you need to let us know and generate the list. If it's more than 5 entities, then we do a lottery.
Could I've got an idea, kind of as a spinoff from that.
Okay, good.
Going back to the CSFA grant program, there was at least a dozen, maybe 15 nonprofits that applied
and that didn't
were not
get it.
chosen.
Right.
I wonder if we could create a lottery from that list.
I think that's an excellent idea. Another opportunity for them, that they're not just totally shut out, but they have another opportunity to generate some money.
What do you think, Eddie?
Yeah, let's.
Okay, so we can have you work with Victor, and we can do some outreach, maybe require them to provide some interest and kind of a short description of what they would do, right? Because we don't want people just to show up with a table and stand there. Like,
right.
One of the things that Eddie's done a good job of bringing these nonprofits in is he brings in nonprofits that create interest at the event, right? So maybe they've got to show what they can do, and then we'll create a list of eligible ones, and then we can do some sort of a lottery or drawing.
Definitely. We'll call Victor tomorrow.
I think that would be great. The rest of commissioners, you feel okay about that idea?
Well, I have a question. I understood that the Pumpkin Festival was going to run for 1 day. Is that off the books?
The Pumpkin Festival too. And I want to know why it's canceled now that everything is like open.
Because as open as it is, hundreds of thousands of people together as sardines is still a very risky proposition, especially with this Delta variant that may rear its ugly head and get us into a very sticky situation once again.
Here's what I'll share is there are discussions happening. I think we all just need to wait.
Right.
But to Hillary's question, there's nothing legally stopping a pumpkin festival from moving forward, but the group, the nonprofit that organized, the city does not organize the pumpkin festival. I want to make sure, growing up here, I thought the city organized it. The city does not.
Right.
It's a nonprofit group. the Main Street Beautification Committee.
Right.
They've organized it for 50 years. They're the ones that run it. And because things were so up in the air, this is an event that is so big that we start working with them on the logistics for it in January. They finish the Pumpkin Festival, they take a little holiday break, and it's hot and heavy from January
That's
on.
right.
And with things so up in the air until just a month or so ago, that's why they decided it's too much. Now, I will say there are discussions. I'm not going to violate anybody's trust. They've got to make some decisions. I think we just need to be a little bit patient on that. So let's keep our fingers crossed and we'll see what happens. But there's nothing legally stopping it from moving forward.
Okay, thank you. No, that's at least helpful.
Right.
I was really curious about that.
Well, I think, Eddie, at some point we need to set up a time where maybe some of the council members could meet to talk about insofar as having nonprofits, and I can only share my experience when I did events, is that giveaways, that they need to bring something and give it away. And that's an important piece, as well as having information about their services and really looking at what kind of services they provide for our community. I think that's an important piece. And, it's just like having Friends of the Parks and Rec and how, they've generated funding to pay for not Carter Park, but to Frenchman's Creek, which was really important. So I think we really need to look at that because, Summer's End concert I thought it was pretty spectacular. So anyway, this is going to be a better one for sure. So thank you all.
Yeah, thank you, Pat. I think Pat brings up an important point, but I think that'll be part of your screening process with the nonprofits as to what it is that they would actually do at the event.
Giveaway.
Yeah, so very, very good. All right, well, thank you, Eddie. I think that sounds really exciting.
Can I just say one quick thing?
Yes.
Just because some nonprofits were named, I just wanted to quickly say that I think Coastside Land Trust took a huge burden on during COVID with the trail usage that was like ridiculous. And people were all over the Coastside Land Trust lands. And I think they played a really important role in our community more than ever in this last year. So just if we're going to talk about names, I want to make sure that one is there.
Well,
okay, well, actually, now that Hillary says that, one of the things that might be a good idea is that when you do the screening, you actually do it with us, the commission, and you bring forth which are the nonprofits that want to be there and what they're planning to do while they're there, and then as a consensus, we can come up with those 5 entities that we're going to go ahead with. Okay, sure. So that way we get some input.
I believe Sea Hugger and Coastside Land Trust are in that group that we're talking about. So
excellent.
I think both are great groups.
Excellent.
Perfect. Yes, Paula, we'll do that. We'll bring you guys in and get you guys to make some decisions.
Perfect. Thank you, Eddie. Fantastic.
All right, thank you.
All right, let's go on to Make It Main Street discussion.
All right, I will keep this short and sweet because we're already at the 2-hour mark and we still have to cover our priority work plan as well. So I'll just share this really briefly. It's really exciting and get you thinking. Hopefully you can attend, and then we'll start to figure out how the commission can have a role moving forward. So Make It Main Street is a new event that has been growing due to a collaboration between the downtown businesses and the chamber, city staff, and some local event planners. In working with the downtown businesses, we were looking for opportunities to bring more people downtown, to visit the businesses, to frequent it. And this just kind of organically happened, and it's really taken a life of its own. It's really exciting. The idea is this would be a First Thursdays event. So the first Thursday of every month, starting July 1st, next Thursday, through November, I think it's the 4th, the first Thursday in November. And each first Thursday, our hope is that from 3 to 7 p.m., people will come downtown. They'll enjoy some different activities, music, entertainment, arts, crafts. We're hoping that businesses will stay open later, that they'll do some things outside, and that people will kind of discover downtown again, locals. This is all about locals. This is not about bringing in tourists. Part of the reason we chose Thursday nights for this. And the Make It Main Street concept is, it's really about the local crafters and artisans that live and work here on the coast that don't always have an outlet for the work that they do. So the basics of it are, we're going to shut down Kelly between Main Street and Johnston Street next to City Hall. And that will be kind of our makers area. And there will be tents and booths, and there'll be a variety of things there. There will be artisanal goods that will be sold from local artisans. There will be demonstrations. The first one, we're likely going to have a glass blower set up right there in the street, doing glass blowing, talking about the art of glass blowing, doing demonstrations, and then helping people see what kind of crafts come from that, and working with Crystal at the Chamber, getting people directed to where in Half Moon Bay you can go and buy those kinds of products. At a future event, we're going to try to have a pottery wheel and a potter out there spinning clay and showing how that works, and teaching, and maybe even doing some hands-on demonstrations with families. You know, there's a gentleman that lives in the community that is an expert at, he's like a certified guitar repair, I think for Gibson guitars. And he's going to be there to talk about how guitars work. And if you bring your guitar, he'll teach you how to restring it or tune it or do maintenance on it. So it's kind of a combination of selling craft goods, demonstrating craftsmanship, and just giving people an outlet for the arts and crafts and artisanship here on the coast. At MacDutra Plaza, Coastside Literary Arts Movement, CLAM, which is a local nonprofit that wants to help youth and adults get more involved in the literary arts. They'll be doing a poetry slam and spoken word readings at MacDutra. There will be live music down next to the Ark and Sacrilege in that vacant lot there. There will be live music up on the north end of town. There will be a screening of a local film. I cannot remember what it's called. It was filmed down at the ranch south of town that's owned by Cameron Palmer and his brother, and Long Branch Ranch. And it was produced by a local producer and director. All the actors are local. It's about a 30-minute movie. That's going to be screened several times during the evening for free at the Oddfellows Hall. And so the whole idea is that we're expanding this event up and down Main Street. Eventually we see a Fix-It clinic in front of the library, Latino arts and crafts at Alas, really giving people a reason to walk and bike throughout the entire downtown and just explore it. And then hopefully while they're there, they'll stop and have dinner at a restaurant. You'll go into a shop and buy some things. You'll at least window shop. And we hope that as we do this over the next 5 months, and there'll be new and different things every week, that it'll just become a part of the Coastside summer for our local families and residents. You know, the city's had a big part in getting this going, but we're happy to see that there's a group that's formed that's going to move it forward. There's a local individual who's very generous that is making sure the funding is there to keep it moving this year and next year, and then hopefully it takes on a life of its own. We're really, really excited about it. And I think there's going to be opportunities for this commission to get involved and to help with some of the planning and the brainstorming about different events, different themes. September will all be around the Latin Independence Days, the Mexican Independence Day and Salvadorian Independence Day events, and it'll have a Latin flavor. October will be about the harvest and pumpkins, and it's going to be really, really cool, and we're really excited. We've got our rec staff involved in helping to pull that off. We're going to have the city will have a booth, the chamber will have a booth in this craft area to meet people and direct people, and it's something we hope just totally takes on a life of its own. And my hope is by the end of this summer, you show up in downtown Half Moon Bay on a Thursday evening, it's completely transformed. It's just we want to get to the point where we have to shut down Main Street for people to walk down it. It's so big and it's all locals. So that's the vision. We hope you'll support it. The marketing is rolling out slowly for the first event. So I'm telling you now, next Thursday, July 1st is the first event from 3 to 7 p.m. Please come downtown and support it. Tell everybody in town you know about it. Let's get the whole coast side there. And let's make this, what we've always wanted to see in our downtown.
Sounds fabulous. I'm all excited.
Go, Matthew.
Yeah,
you got me fired up.
Yep, I agree. I think it sounds cool. And the only thing that would make it cooler, beach volleyball courts. No, just kidding.
Could we do like a portable, like on a trailer or something, and like park it at the intersection of Main and Kelly and have a volleyball match, like something? Dump a big pile of sand there.
Thursday night, Harpo is still going to continue with the jazz because that's going to add to it, of course.
I think so. Harpo's involved in the planning.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing.
Sounds wonderful. I love it. Publicity is the key.
So as you guys are thinking about this, shoot me ideas because it's an evolving concept and I'm still very actively involved in it. I actually hope that it takes such a life that the city can just support it and not have to do all the logistics. And it feels like that's where it's headed. But in the meantime, if you guys have ideas, let us know. It looks like Vice Chair Stamper has frozen. And maybe we just lost her.
I think she
actually had another idea. So we'll
went out and probably coming back in. Probably is what's going to happen. That just sounds great. I'm very excited about that. Okay. So commission priority work plan discussion, very important.
Yes, give me one moment to pull this up. So this is a carryover from the last meeting, and I think it works out better tonight anyways because we didn't have all of our commissioners last month.
Right.
So just a little context for everybody. The request, and I somehow missed it initially, and so I've been able to do some work on it.
May I jump in real quick? I'm just gonna.
Oh, sure.
Hillary's.
Oh, she's back.
She's coming. She's back.
There she is.
Okay, sorry. My point was actually really short. It was just, I love all this, and I just think it would be helpful if there are like teenagers that we could also talk to. It would be great to get their input on what would make something like this attractive to them, because I'm just always trying to think about wholesome activities that engage people of that age in the community.
Absolutely. Now, I will say that the timing of it was based around that thought. Scheduling it from 3 to 7. Originally, it was going to be like 5 to 9 or something. And we decided 3 to 7 made sense because as kids are leaving Cunha and leaving the high school, they kind of naturally find their way to these kinds of events. And then the key is how do we keep them there, right? So I think that's maybe that's something the commission could do is have a booth that kind of checks it, surveys some of these kids and hey, what do you think of this event? What
well, a suggestion booth.
Yeah,
we can have a suggestion booth, which would be great.
Yeah, I appreciate that feedback because we talked about that, and I think most of us are. I mean, I have teenagers, but what I know about teenagers is every single one of them has a different. They're very finicky, right? But if we talk to the kids that are in town at that time, that's going to be our best shot at getting the right stuff for them and getting them interested and engaged and coming to participate.
Maybe can we get the gelato place to do $1 gelatos?
I like that. I'll buy a $1 gelato. The strawberry and
it would be the Thursday special.
What do they have? The strawberry with there's like some herb. You would never think it would be good together.
Basil?
So good. Yes, the strawberry and basil. It's so good.
Yeah.
If we can get them to do that, I'll pay for the first 100 people to show up.
All right. That would be great.
Well, Luis, you work a lot with the high school aged and I think middle school youth through the basketball programs, right?
Yeah, correct.
What, just off the cuff, what are some things you think that, thinking about the theme of this, which is arts and crafts and making things and creating things, what do you think? Is there something that middle school and high school aged kids would be attracted to at something like this?
That's a good question.
Is it food? Is it just food?
I would say it's just mainly food, honestly. You give them a basketball and some food and they're there, honestly. Yeah.
I wonder too about what about henna and body art? That's kind of a popular one.
I like that idea too.
Okay, the other thing, Matthew, to think about in terms of the kids come out if there's other kids. One of the things to do is to get the high school band to come out on a number of these evenings and play. You will get their friends and whatnot coming in and checking them out. So the high school band, the Cunha band, okay, and that'll make a big difference.
I wonder too about things like, speaking of getting the kids to come out, like basketball shooting contests or like soccer goal shooting contests with prizes. Something like that might, if the prizes are good, it's like, I feel like a lot of them like activities. And you're right that it's finicky, like the basketball players like basketball and soccer players like soccer. But nonetheless, it is a way of luring potentially a group of kids out.
Yeah. Well, I'll circle back. We have
the prizes don't even have to be good.
What was that? I'm sorry, I spoke over you. I apologize. What was that?
No, all good. Sorry. No, I was just saying the prizes don't even have to be good for that stuff. People will come out. That's fun stuff. If you can win those types of things, yeah, absolutely.
I know the organizers had reached out to the Boys and Girls Club to help with some of the planning. I didn't hear back, so I'll ask about that tomorrow as well when we meet. And this will be kind of an iterative process. We only had like a month to plan the first one, and there's going to be one every month during the summer. So hopefully as that moves forward, we can add additional things to this event to just help it to grow.
Oh, sounds great. I love it. All right, let's get to the meat.
Okay, so as I was saying, at our last meeting, I missed something, and so we skipped it, but I think it's good because now we have the full commission here. We've been talking about council priorities, and I think this is going to probably become kind of a standing item. This is how I envision it, is that each meeting will kind of go through the priorities and talk about them and talk about where things are going with them. And so you all had requested a work plan. And so what I've developed is kind of a work plan that keeps the priorities as they're listed, but adds some important milestones and steps that we can track and talk about and follow up on, and starts to identify some of them that this commission can actually get pretty involved in. So I'm going to share my screen again. Can you all see that document?
Yes.
So just as a quick reminder, and I'll try to work through this pretty quickly, but I know that you all may have a lot of questions and discussion. Council priorities for this fiscal year are affordable housing, public health, safety and emergency preparedness, community climate resilience and sustainability, economic recovery and development, and redistricting. The priorities for recreation related things that the commission identified include obviously Carter Park funding and development of those improvements, the city and school and boys club MOU for facilities, increased Earth Day activities for next Earth Day in April of 2022, the Johnston House MOU and planning for that location, the public art policy, the Magnolia Park master planning efforts, and then some specific information requests or meetings or collaborations that we can help move forward, including the coast-side-wide coastal trail planning group, the relationship and collaborations with the Granada Community Services District, collaborating with Mid-Penn Housing on the Moonridge Fields that clearly are underutilized, and a first night event in downtown Half Moon Bay, which would be a New Year's Eve event. And then we identified some future priorities or opportunities to track, which include a community recreation survey and additional engagement with other parts of our community, beach sand volleyball courts, bicycle pump track, new and more inclusive events, and the future recreation uses for 880 Stone Pine, which the city most recently acquired. So what I'd like to do is kind of go through each one of these, and I'll show you some of the important milestones we'll be working on and what we think it's going to take to move some of these things forward. And I'm happy to answer any questions. And these are the things I think we'll check in on a regular basis so that you have an understanding of where we're at with each of these projects. So starting with the Carter Park project, this is fully entitled. So we are in a position now with our design, environmental review, and planning process that we have all the permits we need. We are ready to move forward. We do have to get a building permit once we move forward, but the plans have already been designed to meet those needs. The estimated budget for this, for the whole project, is $5.8 million. We've already expended about $500,000 of that on the prep work that I just described, which means the construction cost and management of that construction is about $5.3 million. The first thing that we're doing to move this forward is continuing to monitor federal, state, and private grant opportunities and apply as available. The most recent one that we've applied for is the Prop 68 statewide parks grant. We applied for $4.75 million for that project. They're currently under review, and we will be notified. They've indicated August. It's a little bit of a moving target with the state, but this is the second time we've applied for this grant from the state. We were not competitive the first round for two reasons. One is we were very early in the planning stages. We didn't have what we would describe as a shovel-ready project that we could move forward and build if we got the money. The other big issue that will remain an issue for us is the Prop 68 statewide parks grants are very focused on underprivileged and underserved communities. And though Half Moon Bay certainly has portions that are categorized in that realm of being underprivileged, underserved, low income, unfortunately, the demographics and the income levels of the city as a whole and the community as a whole and the county as a whole means that San Mateo County communities are not very competitive. Most of that money ends up in the Central Valley and in parts of LA County and some of the poorer neighborhoods there. We're going to keep working towards this. What's the famous line? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. We've already applied once. It's very easy to re-up the application each round, so we'll keep doing it. What's more promising is lobbying our state and even federal leaders for budget earmarks from federal and state sources. And Mark Berman's office, who is our state assembly member that represents Half Moon Bay, actually pushed through, and it is currently in the draft budget, $4.75 million for Carter Park. That's the letter I referenced earlier during the city council updates. We sent a letter of support, obviously, for this budget earmark, for lack of a better term. At this point, it's really out of our hands. It's got to just go through the regular legislative process. Mark Berman's office is pushing very hard for this, as are our other state representatives who are supportive of it, but it is his budget request, and so he's the one that has to push it through. We don't know exactly the timing of this. This is a process that used to exist. It went away for a while, and it seems to be coming back, this earmark process. So we're cautiously optimistic that this could go through. If either through Prop 68 or this earmark that's been requested, we get $4.75 million dedicated to this project, it still leaves $500,000 of remaining budget needed for this. And so some of the other things that I'm going to talk about after this will come into play if we're able to move forward, because obviously if we get $4.75 million, we are moving forward with this project and getting it done. The next step in all of this is to develop a fundraising strategy and a plan for fundraising. And we need to do that, I think, in collaboration with the Friends of Half Moon Bay Parks and Rec. Eddie and I we're working on scheduling a meeting with Maria next week to begin those discussions. And my guess is that we either need to have a full discussion about this at our next Recreation Commission meeting, or the Recreation Commission should designate a subcommittee of 2 commissioners that we can work with on an ongoing basis and work with the Friends. That would be my recommendation, is that we designate a subcommittee that is focused on this fundraising strategy and plan, and work closely with city staff and the Friends to develop this strategy. If all of that falls through and we're unable to raise local funds or get grants or state or federal earmarks, we will want to explore financing options. But the debt service for a $5 million project would not be insignificant, and would likely require community support or even a vote of the community to make happen. So that's definitely down on the list, I think, for options. Once the funding is identified and lined up, we would develop the proposed project schedule and begin the development process. Just for your information, the architect that helped with the design, or that completed the design and is advising on this project, they actually believe that this project can be built during the off-season, the performance off-season of this park. Meaning, if we broke ground on this project immediately following the Summer's End Music Festival, so we broke ground in October, there would be sufficient time before the rainy season to do a lot of the site work. We'd have to do limited work during the rainy season, and then in spring and summer, get this worked out so that before the Shakespeare in the Park efforts that happen in August of each year begin, we would have it completed. And they believe it can actually be completely built during that time frame. And being shovel ready allows us to be that aggressive on this. If, as that plan moves forward, it's clear that it can't be done. We've talked about this before. It can be done in phases. That will add a little bit of extra cost to the project, but we could complete the site work and maybe the site improvements, the seating, the restrooms, that kind of stuff during one off season, and then maybe build the stage and some of the other improvements the following year. So a lot of it will depend on if and when funding comes through. I think we have a lot of different pans in the fire on this. Interested on this project, if you all have any thoughts or input or anything that we're not thinking about as strategic ways to move this project forward.
Okay. So yes, thank you, Matthew, because I was going to suggest that we do this in the chunks that you have it in, as opposed to just going through the whole thing. So let's look at this thing, for instance, right now. My first thought that I have is that everyone on this commission should write a letter to Mark Berman supporting his efforts to get money for this, for Carter Park, so that we keep that momentum, that energy going with his office. I'm very pleased that he has stepped up. Let's support this thing, and let's see if we can get as many people as we can to write him a letter about Carter Park.
And what I'll say about this is, if you wouldn't mind, I would love to run this idea past Jessica Blair, our communications director. She handles our legislative affairs, and she can work with our lobbying firm. I'm just unfamiliar with how this process works, and I want to make sure that if doing that is actually helpful or counterintuitive, if that makes sense. I just want to make sure that it is truly helpful before you guys go through that process.
Okay.
So if you're okay, we'll take that back immediately. We'll get that answer very quickly, and we'll get that out to you all.
Great.
Cool.
Any other thoughts from commissioners about Carter Park?
No, I like that idea though, and if it suits us, I think that's a smart move. All good.
Yeah, I mean, no matter whoever is doing anything on our behalf, the fact that there are people saying, yes, thank you, go to it, we need it, we want it, thank you for stepping up. Yeah, all of that is always helpful. That's the way from everything I've worked on, that's the way I see it. Yeah. And I like the subcommittee idea. I think that is definitely the approach. And so we should go right to it. First of all, do we all agree as commissioners that rather than try to deal with this always with the five of us, that there's a subcommittee specifically putting energy and effort into this. Do we think that's good, or do we want to have it always with everybody?
Maybe I'll quickly explain how subcommittees work. Again, we've got some new folks.
Okay, good.
So as I think you recall from our first meeting, you got some training on the Brown Act, which limits how much discussion and interaction commissioners can have on commission-related topics outside of the public meeting space. When you have a commission of 5 commissioners, you're limited to not have the majority of commissioners conversing about any one topic outside of the meeting. So if Hillary and Paulette want to talk about ideas for Carter Park outside of the meeting, they cannot have conversations with any of the other commissioners together or separately, because you create a majority outside of the public view, and it takes the transparency out of the process, and that's how people used to manipulate the process. And so what a subcommittee does is it officially designates 2 commissioners that can then work with staff representing the entire commission on a particular topic. So in this case, a subcommittee, this would be what you call an ad hoc subcommittee. It's just created for a specific purpose for a limited time to deal with a specific issue, and then it goes away when you're done. And those 2 commissioners would work with city staff and the Friends and Friends board members so that we're not waiting from council or commission meeting to make decisions about how to move forward with this. You're delegating some of that authority of that subcommittee to work together to make decisions and represent the committee, the commission, and that allows this process to move forward much more quickly.
Okay, so are we, first of all, can we get some comments from each one of the commissioners as to how you would like to proceed with the Carter Park? Do we want a subcommittee, or do you want all the issues to be in front of all 5 of us at all times?
I'm good with all 5.
You'd rather have that than a subcommittee?
Yeah.
Because all 5 is not going to be able to work with city staff. So just to let you know, I was on a subcommittee, as Eddie mentioned, for concerts in the park. And it was an important subcommittee because we had discussions, we were able to work with staff and work together in terms of coming up with ideas for the bands, for how to go about doing the concerts, what the logistics were going to be, what streets we were going to close, all the details. We were able to do that together. That would have been difficult to impossible to do in front of the full commission. So this is why I personally support a subcommittee. I find subcommittees are very effective because I've been on one, and so I know.
I feel that I would support a subcommittee. The thing that I just struggle with is when financing decisions are made, and and the prioritization of financing decisions takes me by surprise. But
yeah, that would not, I would tell you that would not happen. The subcommittee would work with staff, but then we would always come in front of the rest of the commission, first of all, to update you as to what's happening and to ask for any important decisions that they be made by all 5 of us.
I actually am feeling like subcommittees on a number of these bullets would potentially be useful because we meet so infrequently that I feel like we're not gaining ground very quickly. And I would like to actually see us accomplish things before my children graduate from high school.
That's a very good point, Hillary. A really good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, absolutely. Because when I was on the subcommittee I met, I think it was weekly or, every 2 weeks, or it was with frequency. And that is a problem with our commission, is that we only meet once a month. So.
And to that point, Jonathan just reminded me, we have our summer recess for July. So the next meeting after this is on the end of August.
Yeah,
so
well, there you go.
I'll also throw that in there.
Yeah. All right, so Hillary's for subcommittee. Adam, have you changed your mind? Or are you still with the 5?
I'm okay with it. Yeah, I mean, we can do it. It's hard to dedicate the time and resources for subcommittees, but no, I'm okay with it.
All right, Luis, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say subcommittee as well.
Okay, good. And Pat?
I'm kind of in a quandary really about a subcommittee, which I think works really well. But I think this particular topic is a little bit more intense. And I feel like I have experience, but I don't really feel like I have enough experience. So it's not a volunteer, oh, let's get on the subcommittee and we'll help move everything forward. I feel like this is city stuff.
Well, again, Pat, a lot of this always comes down to passion projects. And, just like Eva, had the passion project of the community garden.
This is totally different. Totally different. You're if anybody's passionate about parks, it's me. And I'll tell you something. Carter Park, I just love it. I go to lunch there, but I really feel that I don't know. I guess maybe I have to process it because it's also too, it's getting late. I get up at 6 a.m. So, I'm just not assimilating the information as I would if it was 6 o'clock. So anyway, I have to go over this information to actually come up with a point that is that'll work for me. So that's how I look at it. Anyway.
Can I share, just for clarification on this, the subcommittee that would be working on this, their focus would be working with city staff and the Friends Development Committee, specifically on the fundraising plan. So it's how are we going to go after fundraising in the community? What kind of sponsor, like naming opportunities do we want to offer? Who are the different groups that we want to target? I've never done a full fundraising plan like this, so I don't know all the details, but really the Friends are going to lead this because that's their role, right? Their role is to raise funds. This subcommittee would just be representation from the commission so that we have a voice in that process and making sure it meets everybody's needs. If what I can say is we're going to meet, Eddie and I are going to meet with them next week and talk about how we move that forward. We can start developing that plan, bring it back in August, and then at that point, the commission can make a further decision about how it wants to move forward. But that's think 2 months from now.
I don't like that. I think it's too far out. I am prepared to be on the subcommittee. If there's someone that would like to be on it with me, somebody who would help in this regard in terms of thinking about fundraising for Carter Park and work with, as Matthew just said, this with staff and with Friends. Is there anyone else who would be on there with me?
Exactly. This is why I don't really like the subcommittee thing, but I'm hoping one of you volunteers.
Well, the other option I would say is if the chair is the only person interested in this project, she can work with staff directly and represent the commission, and then we'll bring back the ideas. She just wouldn't be in conversations with any of you about it over the next couple of months as we move it forward. So that's the other option.
Even better. I like it.
That works for me.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, we normally wouldn't just involve one commissioner and keep everybody else in the dark, but if everybody's supportive of that, then that's how we'll move it forward.
All right, sounds like that is the plan at this point. So I think we're good. I think that ends that one. Let's move on to the next one.
Okay, the next item is the MOU with the School District and Boys and Girls Club. Vice Chair Stamper asked about this earlier. So there's a couple of steps to this. We've tried several times to work with the school district to get into a joint use agreement to use each other's facilities and share the facilities to get as much public access as possible. I think we're in a better place than we've ever been because we have a great relationship with the current superintendent. But even he, when we finally drafted a document in late 2019, early 2020, and he was able to look at it, what he realized is, as we know, the city doesn't have facilities to offer the school district. There's nothing that we have that the school district doesn't have in a better situation. And so a joint use agreement, he couldn't justify to his board. And then of course, COVID hit and they just took a total step back because of dealing with the kids. And so we've been able to re-engage with them over the last month and a half or so as school has ended and they have a clearer path for their future. Of course, during that time, Boys and Girls Club also stepped in and took over after school sports and the school facilities at Cunha. And so that added a third player to the mix. Fortunately, we're also in a better place with that group than we've ever been due to Eddie's work with Jill and the rest of the team at Boys and Girls Club and the collaborative environment that we've created there. So where we're at right now with this plan is the first step is to just do some limited activities on school property to start to build that relationship and to put it into action. And then when Commissioner Eisen was on the council, we implemented what we called 2x2 meetings where 2 council members and 2 school board members would meet quarterly on a variety of topics. And facilities use was the #1 issue that was discussed at those meetings. Those also went by the wayside as COVID hit because the school district had to refocus its efforts. They've indicated that they believe in the next couple of months we can re-implement those. So hopefully we can get into a small limited use agreement for some of the facilities at Cunha, provide some activities during the summer, and then use those 2x2 meetings to discuss how that's going with the higher level decision makers and get support for what I hope is a much broader MOU in the future to be able to use all of the school facilities. So the things that Eddie and his team are working with Boys and Girls Club on right now is how we can get access to either the Cunha gym or the Boys and Girls Club Events Center for things like basketball open gyms, basketball leagues, much broader pickleball offerings than we can offer at the Ted Adcock Community Center, badminton, larger dance and fitness classes, and then outdoor tennis and pickleball court use for drop-in. There's 3 outdoor tennis courts that are also lined for pickleball that are behind the event center. And the next step is, and I believe we have a meeting in the next week or so with the executive director from Boys and Girls Club to actually discuss the logistics. The school district directed us to work with her first to work out the logistics with the Boys and Girls Club because they have control outside of school hours of those facilities. And so if we can work out a logistics plan with them that gives us access to those, then we'll present that to the school district and they'll figure out what it's going to cost us, basically. So our hope is that within the next month and a half to 2 months that those are in place and that for the majority of the end of summer and into the fall, we can be offering these programs, which would be greatly expanded and new programs from anything we've been able to offer in the recent past. And that will set the stage and the precedent for future activities. And I think the biggest thing that we'll be looking at is having that relationship so that as we roll into the next calendar year, we can start planning for summer activities that hopefully include the pool at the high school. Because that is, I think, a really top priority is to get swimming lessons and open swim, especially for some of our lower income residents who do not have access to a pool during the summer because they can't afford or get to the private facilities that exist other places. And then hopefully that will become a much larger MOU where there's just a fixed amount that the city pays the school district every year, or some kind of a cost share if we're able to charge for some of these activities, and really get a much broader use of school district and Boys and Girls Club facilities. So interested in your feedback on that. Are we missing any ideas, thoughts, activities that could be pursued as part of this plan?
Anyone?
Yeah. First, I think it's definitely going in the right direction. I am curious, because the city has not really, I don't know the history, so I could be wrong here, but if the city hasn't really invested in building these facilities, then it does seem like it's a little harder, as the district was referencing, to have shared facilities. But I do think there could be potentially an opportunity for the city to invest in beach volleyball courts at the high school and start an actual real sharing agreement that would be a great place to start, because if the city were able to pay to build courts and the school district were able to offer the land, it would be truly a partnership that would be, I think, create equal footing for both people, or both groups. So I wanted to suggest that they actually have a place where they think beach volleyball courts could fit. And if we want to try to offer ourselves some options to actually get something to happen really quickly, this is something that, it would be really helpful to know what the city would want in exchange for building beach volleyball courts. And I'm just curious how you establish that.
Yeah, and I think that, that wasn't really on the radar. I've added to the list. I think it's an excellent suggestion and something that it can naturally be included in these discussions that we're having. And I think we'll want to check in with you about what you already know about this. Really, I think from the city's perspective, it's just that access is that, you build something on school property. Yes, we understand that during the school day, if it's in an area that brings the community and school children too close together, it's 2021, you don't do as much of that. But there's a lot of outside of school hours that these facilities sit empty, and we just want an opportunity to utilize them and to offer them to the rest of the community. And really, that's all we'd be looking for. So, there's other things that I know when we talk with the school district, it's maintenance, shared maintenance responsibilities or costs. They have union issues because they have union staff that provide custodial services and maintenance and other things. And sometimes that is what gets in the way of this is we want to use a basketball court, but their union rules say that for us to use an outdoor basketball court requires them to bring in a maintenance worker to unlock, supervise, and lock up the court. Well, that's $300-400. Well, we're not going to pay $400 to use a basketball court for an hour, right? So working, and if we're investing in some of these facilities, that might give us some leverage to work past some of those issues. So I love the idea of looking at other opportunities to invest in joint facilities on school property, because the city doesn't have the property, but the school has more. So
yeah, and I have talked with the beach volleyball coach at the high school as well as the principal, and they're definitely open to this. So I think the question really is, what does the city want in exchange? And then if you could help me, maybe we could follow up after via email or something about what would be required to have these conversations. People would they'd really like to know the answer to this question tomorrow.
Great. Yeah. I'm happy to have those conversations.
I know that every year I pay a whack of additional money from my property taxes that goes right to the school district. So I believe I should have access to these public facilities. And as I've said before, everywhere else people use this, every other city, they use the various school facilities. So that's the reality. We're the only ones, and we need to change that. And especially the aquatics thing is a big one as far as I'm concerned, because we're talking about you have to be wealthy. You don't just have to have some money. You have to be wealthy to take advantage of any of the possibilities for swimming. So it's not just sort of the underprivileged. It's just regular middle class, and let's start there, that cannot afford La Baline or going to the colony for their pool. So, and those are only really options. So that does not work. And we need to have some kind of access for kids, especially for aquatics. No question about that. Anyone else on this?
Well, I mean, we've all been pushing for this for a while. I'm happy to see it happen. I'm excited for it. I mean, to me, getting use of the tennis courts for the public is just they're the only tennis courts on the coast. We have,
right.
It's so weird to be.
And they're empty a lot. Like that's
they're empty all the time. Like,
I think there's a big difference between things that are empty all the time and therefore should be getting the opportunity to use, and things that are like under huge demand and have like a real struggle getting, because they're just always busy. And the pool is an example of something which, like, it is really not open. It's not super available because there's so many teams that use it. I still think there are times, but I see more of a reason why that's hard than like tennis courts, where we all see them sitting there. So these seem like low.
I agree. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, Matthew, sounds good. Yeah, continue the work on getting these, and getting a good agreement with them. That's
Great.
all I can encourage you.
Yeah.
Let's go to Earth Day activities.
Okay, and I'll try to move through the rest of these more quickly. I know it's getting late and we're all getting tired. And I think this is an example of one we can move through pretty quickly. Earth Day in 2022 is April 22nd, kind of a cool date. I think the next step is to meet with the sustainability team to identify the existing plan for activities next year, or find out when they're planning that. But I think they'll have a general idea. And then I think what the commission, I've got it highlighted in green, I think a future commission discussion should be, what other things do we want to have added? And I will say that as we look at all of this, bandwidth is a huge issue. Our recreation staff members are very busy and will become busier and busier on just the day-to-day operation of our facilities and our existing programs. And then that leaves me and my team of analysts who have other responsibilities as well to try to pick up some of these other planning and events. And as I've said, there's some big issues going on in the city right now. There is zero bandwidth. And so as we add some of these things like additional Earth Day activities, I think this is a great opportunity for the commission as a group to do some planning on your own and try to develop some things. And then as we get closer to those events and we identify bandwidth within staff, we can help support and work on some of those. So I think that's the case for this. And so what I can do is I can commit that before our next meeting, we'll meet with our sustainability staff and maybe even bring them back to the August or September meeting and have them report to you. And we could almost have like a joint discussion with them and start talking about how we can expand what is done on Earth Day to supplement and support what they're already doing. Any quick thoughts on that?
The one thought I have is, maybe the people who run Earth Day should be, 3 or 4 major environmental nonprofits who have a committee for Earth Day, for doing Earth Day, so that it's not really
make it bigger than the city itself.
Exactly.
Right.
And also that the city would provide, you know, again, like the facility, the 1 or 2 staff people, but that the city is not heavily involved in the planning and putting it together.
Right.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
Because it should be a really great event. But at the same time, if we have constraints, we need to look at how to still make that happen and have those, especially those who have a real stake in the whole idea of Earth Day, whether it's the Coastside Land Trust, you know, just all kinds of hope, you know, just all kinds of organizations that could be involved in creating the committee that puts this thing together.
Hmm.
Okay. Johnston House MOU and planning. There's a couple things that need to happen here. We've got to meet with the Johnston House Foundation leadership on their future plans for reopening and what they want to do up there.
Sorry, quick question. Sorry, back to the parks thing. Could we create a subcommittee with, like, for example, me and someone on the volleyball, so that then I'm like, if I want to try to talk to people for help in this commission, that I can do it in the right way?
Process-wise, that's fine. Chair Eisen, Commissioner Eisen, Chair Eisen, yes. Just interested if you want to take that up right now.
Take that up right now. Well, you know, I want to take up everything right now because otherwise I feel like we just are not moving forward. And I really don't like this break in July. And I'm not sure why we're having that and why we're not meeting in July, honestly. You know, we want to see, this group definitely wants to see things accomplished. And so far it's been a half a year of talking about things. Well, we did do the Frenchman's Creek, so I will say we got something in there. That's fantastic. But we want more things to check off that we have managed to accomplish this year. So I would go ahead with that just because, again, timing, I don't like that we only meet once a month and that then on top of it, we're taking a month off. Is there a reason for that?
July 4th holiday.
Jonathan, do you remember the history? I think it's traditionally been taken as a recess. Most commissions take 1 month as a recess, but I don't know anything specific beyond that. And
I think
you all approved it in your calendar earlier this year.
Yeah, this commission since 2019 has traditionally had 10 meetings, sometimes only 9. Usually the November and December meetings are combined in early December. And
well, you know, we had one meeting where we did not have a quorum. And so for me, that ended up, in a sense, not being a meeting. And so I hate to miss yet another meeting for trying to move some of this stuff forward. How do the rest of the commissioners feel?
I would be up for moving our meeting like forward or up, maybe forward 1 week. So instead of the 4th of July, the next week, for example.
The next meeting would actually not be till the end of July.
It would be the end of July.
Oh, so yeah, I don't need, I have no need to have a holiday then. And I still would like to make a motion to make the volleyball subcommittee.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. So good. There's one. I'm another one. I'm good for doing July. Who else?
I'm good with July.
Okay. So we got a quorum right there. Who else would be available? Luis, can you make it?
Yeah. What day in July would it be exactly?
we'll need to formally put this on the calendar as a special meeting.
It would,
Okay.
So it looks like
But normally it's the fourth Wednesday.
it'd be the 28th.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because I'll be back from Cabo by then.
Oh, good.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, so let's look at that date, Jonathan, because it sounds like we have enough people, the 28th of July, as our meeting date. Okay,
Okay.
Okay, so we'll schedule that as a special meeting because it's not on the official calendar, but we can take care of that. Jonathan, anything special?
We'll need a formal vote if we're going to add it right now.
Okay.
okay, so now let's go back to the volleyball.
Chair, we actually, what
No, we're not finished.
Jonathan was saying is we need to do a roll call
A roll call.
vote and officially approve it.
Oh, okay, all right, sorry.
We'll need a motion and a second for a specific date. So that would be July, or fourth Wednesday would be July 28th, if that's the one that you'd like to go with.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll need a motion, a second, and a vote.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to hold a meeting on the 28th of July.
Second.
Hillary seconds. Everyone in favor?
Aye.
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 All right.
Done deal.
Motion is passed. July 28th is our special meeting. Now let's move back to the subcommittee volleyball.
Now, this is a subcommittee I would like to be a part of.
Well, there you go. All right, so we've got two people, Hillary and Adam. Let's make it happen. You are the subcommittee for getting this volleyball business.
Chair Eisen, we'll need a formal motion to create the subcommittee with its members.
Okay, very good. Let us have a motion that I am making right now to have a subcommittee for volleyball, working with the school, with our Cabrillo school system, and that will be comprised of Commissioner Adam Eisen and Commissioner Hillary Stamper.
I second.
You second, all right. All those in favor, let's have a roll call.
Aye.
Commissioner Harrow?
Aye.
Commissioner Eisen?
You, Adam.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I always mix it up.
Yeah.
Commissioner Black?
Aye.
Vice Chair Stamper?
Yes.
Chair Eisen?
Yes. All right. Motion has passed. We have a subcommittee for the volleyball. All right, Matthew, go ahead. So Johnston House, have you finished with that one? Are we discussing it?
Well, I'll be quick on this one. I'll be honest, as I know in the long-term plans, this is really important, but there's some political implications here. It's going to take a lot of work specifically from me to move it forward. And honestly, I do not have the bandwidth to move it forward right now. If we get a connection, we ping these folks on a regular basis. If we can get something happening, we can prioritize it. But for now, the steps that are laid out would be the key. Is we need to meet with, staff needs to meet with them to identify their future plans. We've got to get them in front of you all to talk about those plans and to hear from you, your thoughts and your desires for the future of that site, and then determine if they're willing to work with us to get into an agreement to make that site what we, I think, already have talked about wanting it to be, which is much more similar to the jail museum that's behind City Hall.
Okay.
So that's when I just, in full transparency, it's going to take a lot of bandwidth from me, and I just don't have it right now.
I understand.
Yeah.
Okay. Appreciate that. Public art policy. So the first step of this was to implement the art deaccession policy. We've seen it in action tonight. I expect that there will be more of this coming to you over the next couple of meetings. So very exciting. The next step, if you all remember, Victor Gaitan, who's an analyst I have in community services, who has worked on public art policies in other communities before, he is the lead on this. He is already working on the draft structure. Him and I spoke earlier this week, and he is committed to getting this to developed to a point that at our next meeting in July, because I had forgotten that we were finishing it, so it works out. At our July meeting, he will come forward and he'll present a general structure of what elements are typically and traditionally included in a public art policy, a draft of what some of that looks like, and then we can hold a discussion with you And I think we'll probably invite the Coastal Arts League to participate and some other folks. Pat Black, our commissioner, has a lot of experience with this. She's going to be an important person to share her experience with this. Get your feedback and then start really pulling this together over the next several meetings. So I see it probably on the agenda in July and August. We're going to skip September because Victor's wife is having a baby at the end of August, early September, and I want to give him the time that he needs with his new family. And then as we move into the fall, really get this wrapped up. And I think the goal would be to have a final art policy in place this fall so that we can start working on some new projects as we come into the new year.
That would be a big accomplishment. I really welcome that. That would be great.
Anything just in these kind of high level steps you think are key things to be thinking about at this point? Or, and again, we'll revisit this list every meeting, and so we can add to this after you've had that presentation from him.
The only thing I think that we should do is, before we even develop the public art policy, or he's going to come up with sort of, it sounds like a rough draft for July.
Really an outline and a framework.
And at that point, you are going to invite, for July, I think we should invite the art people to the meeting so that they can hear what direction we're going in, give their input, and we'll see if we have a lot of feedback or a lot of issues that they come up with. We may want to have create like a committee with those members on it and some other people and staff and whatnot, so that they can finalize a policy that everyone's going to feel good about, not just the city, here's our policy, and then the art community rebels. Right. We don't want that. So always get them in at the get-go so that they're invested and they're part of it. Okay?
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So that's one we'll be bringing back in July, and Victor's really excited to be able to dedicate a lot of time and energy on it. He's got some bandwidth over the next several months, and then after the baby comes, he'll continue to move it forward.
Okay.
All right, Magnolia Park Master Planning. I talked a little bit about this earlier. I just want to give an update. So this is a property located between Seymour and Magnolia Streets on the south end of the Arleta Park neighborhood, just off of Highway 1 to the west. It's, I believe we've identified it as about a 2-acre lot. It's L-shaped, has an open grass area to the west or to the south. And on the north end and moving west is a large area covered in eucalyptus trees. And it was identified as the backup location potentially for the community garden after the Johnston House property was deemed not the right location. And as we started to look at it and working with our community development department and public works, we realized that we had not done anything with this park yet. It had just been dedicated to the city as part of the subdivision and had not been, no development or design or thought had gone into it. And so we really need to follow a full process to master plan this site before we do any kind of decision-making or work on it. So the first step in all of that always is to get some base studies done so that we understand the baseline of what we have there, what opportunities exist, and what constraints exist on that site. And so we're currently already doing those base studies. We have an arborist that's been looking at all of the trees. As you heard kind of in a discussion with a community member earlier, there is some nesting activities, no surprise, in those trees. So that will impact timing of development, type of development, the work that can go on that site. A biotics report, which also looks at things like that. A biotics report is also looking at, are there wetlands on the site? Are there endangered species growing on the site? What other constraints exist environmentally that prevent us from using different parts of the site for different things? That report is almost finalized. And then a topographic survey is just an engineering survey that looks at the entire layout of the park, what physical pieces exist to it, what utilities exist underground, what easements run across it. It just identifies what the entire situation outside of the environmental issues exist on that site. And those reports all together then help the city and an architect start to determine what's feasible and how things can lay out on the site. We're also working with a local architect, landscape architect, because that's the type of architect you'd work with on master planning a park site, to help us start, much like how we did with Carter Park, develop a concept design, very high level, just some ideas of where some of the things that we've heard from the community that they're interested in could go on the site. And that just gets people's juices flowing. And then we would hold a series of public meetings. We would do something on the site with the community members to walk around and to look at it and to start to just brainstorm and develop a vision for what kinds of amenities could be included on the site and where. We'd hold a workshop with you all, a well-noticed public meeting to allow people to come and share similar feedback. And then the architects go back and take all that feedback and they get to work on a little bit more detailed design. And then we bring that back to you as a commission, and we continue to refine that until we had a high-level master plan that says this portion of the park would be used for X, this portion of the park would be used for Y. And then you can start, once all that's done, you can get through the environmental process and start working on specific design elements of the park. So as you know, some of the things that have been talked about as potential amenities for this site are the community garden, because that has been a council priority and it's what really sparked this conversation. We don't know where that's going to go, but that is high on the list. There's an existing community-built bike track, and we've got to do something about it. It's obviously a great amenity to have in the community, but there's also some liability and some danger there. And so we've got to explore what we can do with that, whether we can make modifications to it to make it safe and usable, whether we can expand it and make it, really, really develop it and make it something great, or if this is not an appropriate place for it and have to remove it. All of that will be done through this process. We've heard about the volleyball courts as an option for this, and so that's something we'll explore. Picnic grounds, other types of botanical garden features besides just a community garden, hammocks and, disc golf. I mean, there's all kinds of different opportunities that we can explore here, and we really want to involve the community and this commission in that process. So the first step is to get the base studies completed, which is almost done, and then to start the master planning process with this architectural firm. And so my guess is by the time we come back in July, I'll have an update of what that schedule looks like and when we can expect these community meetings and start the real community feedback process.
Okay, Matthew, on this, I'd like to see that before the end of this year, that we have a plan for Magnolia Park.
You're saying a master plan completed?
Yes.
I know that the schedule that they're working on would make that happen. And so that's the goal. Obviously,
that would be huge. That would be another great achievement, that we would be ready, that we have a plan, we've involved the community, we know what we want to do at Magnolia Park, and we're going to do it the following year. We'll start. So that would be a really good achievement. I just want to say something. I want to table the rest of this for our July meeting so that we don't continue this meeting much longer. And we pause right here with the Magnolia Park. Any comments on Magnolia Park from my fellow commissioners? Questions or comments to Matthew? Okay.
A lot of different ideas out there. I like them, and I like the idea of moving the meeting to shorten to this point as well. Yeah. But Magnolia does have a lot of possibilities.
Very, very good. Very exciting. Okay, so thank you, Matthew. That's really great. Given your condition, you ended up doing a lot of talking, and we still haven't even finished everything. So, okay, great. Let's go to Any other comments, commissioner comments?
Thank you,
None.
Mark.
I just want, I like to have follow-up. My only comment is like, I want to hear, let's say from Eddie, for instance, the video at the skate park. Like, what's the status? Don't leave us hanging with things that happened in the other meetings where we don't have finalization on something, and then we never hear about it, or we forget about it. Like I want to keep this tight. So what's the story with that?
So where we left off on that, Paulette, is we've asked in our admin services department, their senior management analyst, Brian Lopez, to help us put together a video camera use policy for the city to adopt. Unfortunately, until just a few weeks ago, they were super busy putting together the budget that was adopted. So their staff was pretty focused on getting that done. So I think now that they've passed that point of their workload, they can start focusing on things like this, helping us put together this policy. So there hasn't been much movement on it. That's why we haven't brought it up, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, so keep us updated and keep it in mind that don't let the loose things, like keep us, like even if it means I don't have anything further to report as of right now about this, but we're keeping the process going, like anything. So yeah. Okay, anything from the commissioners, final words? All right, thank you.
I got one more. I apologize. I got one more.
Nope, it's over.
Under the future items preview, we don't have to have any discussion about it tonight, but I need to get it into your minds, and we'll talk about it in July. Public meetings are starting to move back towards being in person. There's no pressure right now to do it. We are doing our first in-person public meeting tomorrow with our public safety subcommittee. It's the planning and the logistics of doing an in-person meeting. We forgot how much more detailed they are than doing a meeting like this.
Right.
We don't know what's going to happen with other commissions or the city council, but it's something that we should talk about with your commission. For now, we are perfectly fine continuing with Zoom meetings. They're probably preferred by some people. I assume so. At some point, we will not be able to do them with Zoom. And so we'll just want to develop a plan as a group to go back to in-person. And so we'll just make sure that's on the next agenda.
Yeah,
or maybe a brief discussion.
Put it on July.
The agenda's already looking pretty busy. So something to talk about and think about over the next couple of months. That's it.
Great. Okay, so Jonathan and Matthew, you have the things that we did not cover that just should go right onto the July agenda. Okay, good. Yeah, Pat, did you want to say something?
Yes, I did. I just want to thank everybody for showing up. It's a lot of information. Robust is the name of the game with this commission. So I thank you all personally. Anyway, take care. Good night.
Thank you, Pat.
Well.
Okay, so the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thank you, guys.
Good night.
Bye.